And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it.
And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it. And it's a ticket talking Mazda for the biggest. That's a comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it. A comma and a comma and a comma. Gotta get it, get it, get it, get it. Comma and a comma. Gotta get it.
Hello everyone and welcome to the 2024 Race of Champions. I am very excited to be back. I have been missing GPVWC ever since it finished, but we've still got one more broadcast at least before the end of the season. There you can see the matchups that we will have today on your screen. Some of those are not entirely correct, but we will update you of those as we go along. And we will get started in just a few minutes. Let me quickly explain to you how this works. Basically, we have invited the top 4 drivers from every championship on the GPVWC career ladder, so Super League, Super Light, Formula Sprint 1 and Formula Sprint 2. If one of the top 4 has not been able to make it, we have invited the next best person on the championship standings. So that makes up 16 cars. Then seeds 17 to 28 will be made up by challengers. In other words, people who have been invited specifically to compete in this event. And then the bottom 4 spaces were qualifiers, so people who have had to qualify for their seat in this event. There are also some other qualifiers. They have stepped in to replace other people who have pulled out. Once again, we will update you on all of these as the event goes on. And I believe we're just about to go to our first event now. So this is actually one where the board said the wrong name. It would have said Jan Grangfist versus Charlotte Menink, because Menink initially qualified for this race. Menink has now pulled out, so our Super League champion Jan Grangfist will be against the bottom-seeded Daniel Scott, who is another qualifier. So it is Grangfist, the Super League champion, kicking it off alongside Daniel Scott. And as we see this race, I will be able to explain to you how the GPVWC Race of Champion works. So they are off and underway. As you can see, they are side by side. So one of them will be using one side of the track, the other will be using the other side of the track. And it's a very cleverly designed circuit so that when they get around to the start-finish straight, they will swap sides and they will each do a lap of the other person's track. Ultimately, there will be 4 laps. You can see on the top left it says 2 laps. That's because both sides of the track have to be done twice, and that's what the lap counter means. You can see that Daniel Scott there has just started what would be the second lap of the race, but because they have only done one side of the course, it only counts as 1 lap, if that makes sense. And now we watch our Super League champion, Jan Grangfist, as he negotiates the tight and twisty Race of Champions track, which is the same track that we used last year. So the people who did this event last year should have a slight advantage in theory. Across the line we go. There is 4 seconds separating Grangfist and Scott, and Grangfist should lead us around as we go for our second complete lap. Daniel Scott there in the fancy coloured Mazda MX-5 attempting to catch up. And if he doesn't, that doesn't necessarily mean that he is out of the tournament straight away, because we do actually have a best of 3 system in place. So there is going to be another race after this, no matter what happens between Jan and Dan. And that means, of course, that the first to win 2 of these head-to-head races is the one who progresses, and it's going to be Grangfist, unless he makes a mistake on this lap, because Daniel Scott has unfortunately found himself in the barriers and pointing the wrong way. So here comes Grangfist across the line, and there we go. Jan Grangfist takes the first race of the 2024 Race of Champions. He is, of course, the top seed, so was always expected to win this one. But then again, Daniel Scott did have to qualify for his place, so nothing is confirmed whatsoever. Now, annoyingly, I am actually tasked with updating the results as the race goes on as well. So you may hear a little bit of tippity-tappity typing as I update the leaderboard in the background. But that's what you have to do when it comes to events like this. So I would also like to say a massive thank you right from the off to Menno Klont for helping me with all of these things, and of course Remco de Zeeuw, who is on your cameras today and providing you with the stream that you are watching as it goes. So that is 1 point to Jan Grangfist over Daniel Scott, not Charlotte Menink, as the timing screen erroneously says. Don't really blame anyone in particular for that, because obviously there have been a few updates, a few people pulling out right up until the start of this event. And that is why what you're seeing on your screen may not entirely match up with what you're seeing in reality. I will do my absolute best to keep you up to date as we go along. So we're now waiting for the drivers to get back into position. All day we will be using these Mazda MX-5 Cup cars. If you're American, you may know them as Mazda Miatas. And we are just doing the qualifiers today. So the initial head-to-heads will take place today. Each driver will race once. And then, of course, tomorrow, because this is a 2-day event, tomorrow will be dedicated entirely to the knockout rounds. So the round of 16, round of 8, and then, of course, the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals. Away we go again. Jan Grangfist and Daniel Scott side by side. It is Jan versus Dan. Jan Grang versus Dan. And you can see a little bit of grass being kicked up already, but Jan did win that first race rather convincingly, so Daniel Scott really has to pick this up if he wants to stay in the game. Now, annoyingly, I don't have a live timing screen up just yet. I will have to get RaceView involved, because I believe that we are using the RaceView software today, but I'd also like to keep chat on the or keep tabs on the YouTube chat as we go along as well, just to see what all of you guys are saying. And actually, there's more people than I expected tuning in now, so thank you all very much for being here, and I'm sure we have a great day of racing ahead of us here. What you're currently seeing is the top-seeded driver, Jan Grangfist, versus the bottom-seeded driver, Daniel Scott. That's how all of these qualifiers are going to work today. The top-seeded driver will be against the bottom-seeded driver, the second-seeded driver against the second bottom-seeded driver, and etc, etc. So we're on to the second lap of the race now. The timing screen is not entirely convincing. It's not one that you can necessarily keep up to date with. The first time around it was showing Dan Scott as being something like 25 seconds behind as we went on to the second lap of the race. And I don't think that was entirely accurate by any metric. Here we go through that banked corner on top of the hill. Lovely, lovely turn there for Jan Grangfist. I remember last year we had Renault RS01s who were literally taking flight over that corner. We've elected to take pretty much entirely new cars this year, so we should see some very different styles of racing. But there we go, Jan Grangfist wins the second of the 2 heats between himself and Daniel Scott, and therefore will progress to the next round tomorrow. Congratulations to our champion Jan Grangfist for keeping his hopes alive and being the first confirmed driver to move on. Now, of course, we have to wait and see who the next race will actually end up being, because the drivers who have just taken part in that one have the choice of going for a third race, or letting it settle at 2-0, and then, of course, we will wait to see whether or not we end up getting a brand new lineup of drivers onto the grid next. It should be Jan Dragoon versus Kurt Rotjav, unless I'm very much mistaken. But of course, there may still be one more round between Grangfist and Scott, depending on what they have decided amongst themselves. So, hello to everyone who is tuning in the YouTube chat. Great to see you all here. I tell you what, after GPVWC Super League finished not too long ago, I was a bit worried I wouldn't get to commentate again this year. The Young Drivers Test, of course, happened a couple of weeks ago, and I ended up taking part in that. That was a lot of fun, and I'd like to thank Carlos Martin for stepping in to cover that, as well as everyone else who got involved in that broadcast. and of course everyone who ended up coming in to interview during that one as well. It was very fun to watch back, including all of the silly little races that we did at the end. Ed Hunter says, Caitlin on RaceView tried GPVWC Server 2 for live timing. Thank you very much. So if any of you guys are looking for live timing as well, raceview.com is probably the best place to look. And I will look there right now. There are your lineups. You see, as we wait for the next race, you've got plenty of recognizable names here. You have champions from all of our categories. Jan Grangfist is here, the champion of Super League. We do, of course, have Alex Laho here, the champion of Super Lights. You have Frank Hamming, champion of FS1. Wasn't Mike Quint champion of one of these championships? I think he must have pulled out, I'm afraid. So we don't have Mike Quint here today. And Mateus Micah, of course, is the champion of FS2, and he should also be here. And of course, we have plenty more drivers to wait for. Michael Falkenheim was the champion of the qualifiers the other day, and that's how he ended up getting in. So I think definitely wait and watch for Falkenheim. He should be a real contender. Okay, so our next drivers are Jan Dragoon and Kurt Rotjav. Jan Dragoon this year was racing in Super Light. He was 5th position in Super Lights, although seeded 7th here due to a couple of drivers from Super Lights pulling out. And Kurt Rotjav is one of the drivers who has had to... I believe he was one of the invitational drivers, actually. I'm just checking my entry list quickly. And annoyingly, my entry list is not entirely up to date. Oh goodness, and I'm clicking on all the wrong buttons. But come on, entry list. There we go. Yeah, Kurt Rotjav was one of the invitational entries for this race. And as we get underway, that looked to be a better start for Rotjav, so keep an eye on him and see if he can keep up those times through the sector splits. I'm still in the act of trying to get up my my race view timing, so I do apologize if I missed anything at the start there. Through the tunnel goes Kurt Rotjav, the lovely little Mazda MX-5 engine screaming through the reverberations. Across the line he goes. Not quite a lap completed yet. They still have to do a tour of the other side of the course. There are those big sausage curbs that caught so many people out last year. I remember Joe Gillette ended up propping his car on his side, ended up parking his car at a 90-degree angle to the ground, and I'm still not entirely sure how he managed to do that, but it was very impressive. Looks as if Jan Dragoon leads at the end of the first lap by 0.7 tenths of a second, according to my live timing. I know it didn't say that on the screen in front of you, but I have finally got my live timing up, and I think I trust that slightly more. So if any of you guys are looking for live timing, go to raceview.com. That's race and then -view.com. And then GPVWC Sim Racing #2 is the server name, so make sure you are looking out for that. Charlotte Menink says, I had some technical issues, so I had to pull out for other drivers to have a chance. That's very unfortunate to hear. I was very much looking forward to seeing you having a go when I saw you signed up. Charlotte is actually going to be my teammate for next year in Formula Sprint 2, and I can announce that now that the teams have been announced. And it looks as if the first round here between Jan Dragoon and Kurt Rotjav goes the way of the Super Light driver. So Jan Dragoon in the number 23 Mazda puts himself one up over Kurt Rotjav, and therefore one race closer to going through to the round of 16, which is tomorrow. I know I said round of 32, but this is, of course, the round of 32 that we are watching here. I am just doing way too many things at once and getting all confused located. Jan Dragoon, putting him on the live timing screen. Interesting that all of our races so far have been won by someone called Jan. Have you noticed that? We've had 3 heats, all of them won by Jan. Of course, we have had 2 different Jans, so that doesn't entirely mean much, but yeah. I'd be very impressed if that kept up, seeing as our next matchup doesn't actually have someone called Jan in it. And that is the train of thought that my mind resorts to when I'm busy filling out the results sheet. Jolly good. Okay, both drivers are back on the starting grid, preparing for Heat 2 of the round of 32. Kurt Roav is in the blue car on the left, Jan Dragoon is in the green car on the right. And you take a look at the middle of the screen where you will see the red light. When those go out, we'll be underway once again. And go, go, go. This time Dragoon gets a slightly better start. It looked as if Roav got the better start last time around, unless I got them the wrong way around by looking away. I love that massive rock wall on the right there. It's very, very scenic. Not that you can see much from on board Jan Dragoon here. The windscreen always quite small on these Mazda MX-5s. Through the left-hander, keep it tight through here, into the tunnel we go. Right out to the outside, using literally all of the track. This is beautiful stuff here from Jan Dragoon. One of the smoothest laps I've seen so far. Now that's a point, isn't it? I should really have been keeping track of the times that these people are setting to see what quick lap times actually are. Kurt Roav through the left-hander and coming to the end of the first official lap. And the live timing will tell us the actual gap between the two of them. So Dragoon crosses the line ahead, just like last time, although this time the gap, well, it's about 0.7 of a second again. So this is almost a repeat of the first race. And Kurt Roav has it all to do this second time around to see if he can keep himself in the competition. I do feel sorry for the people who get knocked out in the round of 32 because these races are very short and very quick fire. Each race is only about 2 minutes, so if you end up losing 2-0 in the round of 32, you only end up with about 4 minutes on track in the whole competition. But I guess that's just what you've got to do to make an event like this that is so quick fire. You've just got to rattle those races out, bang, bang, bang. And out of the final corner they come now. Has Kurt Roav been able to keep up with Jan Dragoon this time around? No, he has not, and it's 2-0 to Jan Dragoon. The 100% Jan winning streak has kept itself up, with Jan Dragoon winning 2-0 over Kurt Roav, and he will move on to the round of 16, which will take place tomorrow. So I will just update that very quickly on the tournament tree. And where are they? They are all the way down there. Jolly good. The last place I was going to look. And Kurt Roav, our 7th seeded driver, moves on to tomorrow's races. So, looking back at the schedule, the next race should be Frank Hamming versus Casper Kurit. That's the next round. And I will confirm that when, of course, they do go onto the track. There is still the opportunity for Dragoon and Roav to do one more race just for the fun of it. That is if they want to do so, and if they're allowed to do so. We still want to keep the race streamlined, keep it moving on. But Hamming versus Kurit will be the next matchup, whatever happens. I'm going to take this opportunity to look back at the YouTube chat. I think I'll do that between all of the heats once I've put the results in the tournament spreadsheet. Kaido Kurit is tuning in. Any relation to Casper Kurit? I very much assume so. My cameraman Remco just says he thinks that might be Casper's dad. That would be interesting. So, Casper Jan Kurit. Is that actually his middle name? That would be very funny if it was. We could genuinely keep up the Jan winning streak. I don't think so. I think that would be a joke, but yes, that would be very, very funny indeed. Okie dokie. We've got Ed Hunter in the YouTube chat. Very good. Carlos Martin here as well. Fantastic. Owen McGorgy, he of course is racing here later on, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing that. Owen is always competitive. Craig Patterson is here. Jake Dennehan is here. Jake, of course, was the champion a year ago. Galeforce97 says, part of me wants to keep practicing, part of me wants to watch. So I presume that's another one of our competitors, not sure which one. It doesn't exactly help me when your YouTube name is different to your actual name, but oh well. I'll just get up the stats for Frank Hamming versus Casper Kurit, as I assume that's what the next race is going to be. Frank Hamming was, of course, third place in FS1, although looking at the leaderboard, the top two of FS1, Mike Quint and Victor Ivanov, declined to take part in this championship, so unfortunately we don't have either of those drivers here, and instead Frank Hamming will be the top representative driver from the Formula Sprint 1 competition, and Casper Kurit is... Once again, as I struggle to check my my entry list. Where is Frank Hamming? Oh, there he is. Okay, so Casper Kurit is another one of our invitational drivers, and officially the 24th seeded, although seeds, as far as the invitational drivers go, are not entirely representative. Anyway, the lights are about to go out, and away we go! Casper Kurit's on the right, we have Frank Hamming on the left, and we head over the bridge and under the hill. Around the left goes Casper Kurit now into the banked corner, one of the trickiest corners on the track, and then a tight right-hand hairpin, which all of the drivers seem to cut slightly, but I think you are able to get away with that. Track limits is always taken by the game's official approximations, and so if the game allows you to do that, then you of course are allowed to get away with that. It's the same for everyone. Under the bridge we go, that's how the tracks end up crossing over. There's a bridge and a tunnel. And then into the right-hander. We're on board with Casper Kurit here as he flicks his car left, right, left, right. A very tight circuit and a very narrow one as well. It's very easy to tag barriers and end up coming off worse. And it's a close first lap there. The gap just 0.2 of a second to the advantage of Casper Kurit. So could this end up being our first race where the lower seeded driver comes out on top? If Casper Kurit keeps up his advantage, then that would end up being the case. Frank Hamming is the driver with it all to do as he attempts to catch back up with Casper Kurit. Oh, he touches the wall. Frank Hamming touches the barrier. I think that he is on the back foot now. And Frank Hamming, you can see on the timing screen, he's gone to number 1, but that is still not representative. The only way we can really tell it who is ahead is by watching what happens as they cross the finish line at the end of the lap. Hamming goes under the tunnel now, and will exit the tunnel and cross the start-finish line to the applause of the crowd, and it's Kurit. So Kurit gets the first of the two races, and the gap in the end was 6.5 of a second in the advantage of Casper Kurit. A great effort there from the invitational driver, and that is the first upset that we've seen today, but they of course have to do it all over again in order to be confirmed through to the round of 16 tomorrow. So can Casper do it? Leave your predictions in the chat. And if you really are in the game of making predictions, then why not make a prediction for each and every one of these matchups? We've got plenty more coming today and tomorrow, and plenty more to see. Okie dokie, so Casper Kurit will, of course, start on the opposite side of the grid for this race too. That's how they keep it competitive. We will have Kurit on the left this time, Frank Hamming on the right. And Kurit comes into this one race up. Kaido Kurit says, well done, Jan, one more to take. Yes, indeed. I think I think Casper is going to unofficially adopt the name Jan now, just to keep our streak alive. Where's Jan Magnussen when you need him? We lost Patrick Magnussen, he won't be competing today. And so I think Jan Magnussen would be the only logical replacement, and we need to invite him as soon as we possibly can. The red lights are coming on once again. And off we go with Casper Kurit on the left. Frank Hamming is on the right. Are we about to see our very first upset of the events today? You could call it a cup set, of course. These two Mazda MX-5 cars, often used in Super Cup competition. I've actually had the privilege of seeing Mazda MX-5 racing in person in the Mazda MX-5 Super Cup at Brands Hatch. And I would very much recommend going to see them if you ever have the chance to do so, because they are fantastic racing, especially when you see them all racing together in a large pack. And it really does make it an entertaining race when they slipstream each other and bump draft each other around. We're coming towards the end of the first lap of the event, and we're going to see who has the advantage now, Casper Kurit or Frank Hamming. Here is Hamming out of the final corner. Kurit still has the advantage. Look at that. Frank Hamming is on the verge of being knocked out of the competition and being our first major loser. I say that with all due respect to Frank Hamming. He is not a loser. He is a very competitive driver, but clearly just not gelling with these Mazda MX-5 Cup cars as well as Casper Kurit has so far. We're heading now towards the final half lap of this particular heat. And Frank Hamming still has it all to do. He needs to hit those marks, get his braking exactly right, make sure he keeps it out of the barriers, but also doesn't take it too conservatively. Now is the time to push. We're once again on board with Casper Kurit, heading through the tunnel. This is the final corner of the heat. Through the left-hander, the final turn is on the left. He touches the wall. This might go the other way, and it doesn't. Casper Kurit goes through to the round of 16, which will take place tomorrow. It is the first upset of the competition. Congratulations to Casper Kurit for knocking out the Formula Sprint 1 contender and moving through to the round of 16 tomorrow. I am delighted to say that I'm now being joined by Alex Foulkes, who you may know from Formula Sprint 2 commentary today. And this is my first time ever talking to you in a real live call, actually, Alex. So welcome. Very good to meet you. I'm sorry, I've never actually been able to introduce myself before, but I am Caitlin. You have seen me racing before, I know. And yeah, I'm a big fan of your FS2 commentaries. I thought you were very funny this year. What do you make of that race that we've just seen between Frank Hamming and Casper Kurit?
I'll be completely honest, I did not see anything much of it than the start and finish. So all I do know is that it was incredibly close, which is sort of what you're expecting. But it was closer than I was also expecting it to be. That being said.
And of course, we do have a seeding system here where the drivers come in with a seed between 1 and 32. And we're always expecting the driver with the better seed to come out on top. But on that occasion, we actually saw an upset, Alex.
Well, yeah, it also has to be said that Kurt is an incredibly skilled driver, as much as Frank Hamming as well, but Kurt probably more suited to the sort of route that he had. I think, personally, I would have preferred to be on that left side at the start anyway, based on just, it seems a bit more simple. There's no real caveats to the circuit. It's just the longer feeling route. So I think in that regard, on that last race, Kurt did have a bit of an advantage, but it was a good drive nonetheless.
Now, you will know some of the drivers from this next race. In fact, both of the drivers from the next race, I think, took part. Actually, no, never mind, I am mistaken, but we do have Craig Patterson in this next race. He, of course, one of the real contenders from the FS2 championship this year. I personally could not keep up with him whatsoever as he went on his way to 3rd place in the FS2 championship. And he will be against Darius Andre, a tough competitor who I've also raced against in the past and also stood absolutely no chance against. Who do you rate in this next race between Patterson and Andre?
I honestly have no idea, because I have never seen either of them racing in the same category. I'm sure they have at some point, but I personally have not seen it, and I think it'll be quite close. Patterson's very skilled, but so is Andre, in the sense that they've both, for the most part, got some very impressive results.
Okay, so Yes, sorry. I'm just being updated now by Menno and my my cameraman Remco de Zeeuw, that the next race between Craig and Darius is not going to take place because Darius has not made it to the event, possibly having technical issues or something along those lines. So that means that Craig Patterson will get an automatic bye to tomorrow's race, or tomorrow's round of 16. And instead, our next event will be Alex Laho versus Brody Lawless. So, of course, we may have a little bit of a break while they get themselves ready. They weren't expecting to be the next race. And so we may have a few minutes to wait before these two get underway. But Alex Laho, of course, was our super light champion this year, won it by 31 points over Sandeep Singh. And he is going to be up against Brody Lawless, who was taking part in the Formula Sprint 2 championship this year. Lawless actually just made his Super League debut at the Brazilian Grand Prix. Didn't quite go his way, but still impressive to see him moving right up to the top level of GPVWC competition. And Alex, you'd probably be a bit more familiar with his driving since he mainly took part in Formula Sprint 2 today. Do you think he stands a chance against Alex?
Probably not. I mean, Lahu is a very, very quick driver. With super lights, of course, he won that championship in his first rookie season. Lawless, not as much experience, not as much time racing with other drivers. Fortunately, there is a wall between them, so I suppose it could go either way, although I'm mostly saying that Lahu comes into this with the upper hand as they get started away, and that was a pretty quick release for Lawless. Unfortunately, we're going to have no gauge in terms of who's going to be faster at the minute, although it does seem to be a bit of a slidey start through this first section of corners for Lawless, of course. Let's see, after our first cross of a timing line, how it goes. Oh no, of course I'm stupid.
That's okay, we still have half a lap to go. It's a good time to remind you actually, since you personally have just joined in, that if you do want to see live timing, you can go to race-view.com. That's all in lowercase, race-view.com, and then look up GPVWC Sim Racing #2, and that will give you live timing for this event. It will update after every lap of the course. That of course means they have to do one of each side of the course, and at the end of that first lap it was 0.7 of a second the advantage Alex Laho over Brody Lawless. So we're on board with Alex Laho now, who is the better seeded of these two drivers and has shown us why with that first lap of the competition as he now heads into the tunnel. And this is how it's done from our super light champion who will almost undoubtedly be racing full-time next year in Super League. He's already made his Super League debut this year and did a fantastic job as well. I believe took a 4th place finish in one of the GPWC Super League races this year, although I can't remember exactly which Grand Prix that was. And with less than half a lap to go, I think Lahu is about to put himself one up over Brody Lawless. This is looking like a very clean lap so far. Out of the final corner he comes, and yes indeed, Alex Lahu makes it 1-0 versus Brody Lawless and smashes straight into the barrier. But of course he will be perfectly alright because this is sim racing. Alex, the other Alex, is going to be hard to beat here, especially when he is on such form as we've just seen him put in.
To be fair to Brody, he only lost 0.7 of a second on both laps round, so it could still be close. It could just be a one time thing. I'm not saying it will be, but of course there is also the chance that Alex makes a mistake, which he is known to do in certain races, although some of them, like the one that we have in our intro, was not his fault, but it is very funny to watch every time.
Indeed. So we will now have to wait and see it happen again. They each have to go from the other side of the course, so this time Laho I think will be on the left and Lawless will be on the right. And we will have 2 more laps of the competition, or 4 laps. It's actually quite difficult to class what counts as a lap in this one. And then we will be underway. I know we don't have long to wait for this race, Alex, but I've wanted to say something in particular for a while, but of course I've never really had an opportunity to speak to you. Alex, your commentary with Toby Davis in FS2 this year was very, very funny. I would like to say, I don't know what the plan is next year in terms of commentary, but if you and Toby are not commentating together, which I hope isn't the case, but if you don't end up commentating together, please say you're going to start a GPWC podcast. You guys would be brilliant together.
The thing is, it would just be the same thing, but without the racing. The racing is what brought people in the first place, but the commentary is what made people stay. I guess... came for FS2, stayed for Toby and Alex, is what I've heard at some point. So yeah, maybe. We don't know what we're doing next year. I think Toby wants to keep commentating with me, but we'll have to see. I do too, to be fair, because it was very fun, both to commentate and to hear about other people having fun.
I'm very glad as well that I am one of the only drivers that Toby did not call an idiot this year. Probably because I was always out. I mean, I was never really on the camera. I was always back in 20th place or whatever. But I don't think he ever actually called me an idiot, so I've got away with that one. And I'm very happy to say that.
Yeah, and Lahu with the advantage on the first lap. 0.7 again. That first sort of lap and the first sort of tour. That's interesting. I wonder if it's going to be 1.4 as we cross the line the second time.
We're on board with Brody now, and he has it all to do coming through the last corner of this half lap. I believe they do still have a lap to go, or a half lap to go. Goodness me, this is confusing, but that's the race of champions for you. Under the bridge, through the right-hander, right up next to the barriers. Avoid the sausage curbs, they're very big on each side here, and they can really launch the car if you get it wrong here. And this could be the last time that we see Brody in this competition, unless Alex Lahu has had a bad tour of the circuit. Around the right-hander goes Bro Lawless, and Alex Lahu moves on with a 2-0 victory. We're yet to see, Alex, our first split decision, because every round so far has been a 2-0 victory.
Yeah, I mean...
Okay, yeah, we're just, that was our broadcast director Remco stepping in saying that he thinks Alex Lahu just set the fastest lap time of anyone.
Fastest.
Second fastest. Who is the fastest?
Grist still has a 52.916. That was a 52.986.
Okay.
Still work to do.
Well, I'm sorry that I haven't been keeping track of that. I have to admit I'm a little bit busy today because I'm also updating the tournament bracket as it goes along. And if you hear any frantic typing right about now, you will know why.
Well, you've got your answer. I genuinely wonder how many times you've clacked your keyboard on the stream currently. Like, can we get a counter? Can we get someone with more time than sense go through and count every single keystroke that's come through on the broadcast? That'd be really funny.
I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, you can hear it, I take it then.
A little bit. I don't know if it's audible on the YouTube side, but I can hear it a little bit.
Okay, well, I do apologize for that, but I would rather not go on push to talk because I would absolutely forget.
Forget? Yep.
Yes. Okay, 100%. Our next competition will be Oliver Taras versus Owen Hogsvik. And that shows us just how ahead of time we're running, because this was supposed to start in 22 minutes time. But yes, I guess if I could say anything to the drivers right now, it's get ready, because you never know when you might be called up. Now, Oliver Taras was... God, I'm having to really frantically search my my timing sheet. Okay, Oliver Taras was one of our FS1 drivers who was summoned for his duties in this championship. He was 11th in the FS1 championship, with a good few results towards the end of the season, although missed out on most of the first part of the season. I think he would have been significantly higher up the championship standings had he been a full-time driver. And as I have just said, he will be up against Owen Hogsvik, one of our as I get completely distracted again, but yeah, one of our invitational drivers who has done a little bit of FS2 this year, and I think also a little bit of FS1. Yep, drove for 100 to 1 esports, unless I'm very much mistaken. And unfortunately, didn't have much luck in either of those championships, so he will be hoping for a little bit better today, and that would be very, very fun to see. Let me check what Menno Klontz just said very, very quickly. Menno says we might still get back to Craig Patterson's race later. Okay, so I guess that means we will have to see if Darius Andre makes it to this event, or if anyone else pulls out before the end. So if you are listening, Craig, you're not entirely off the hook just yet. We might be calling you back later on, but it does depend on how things go. Sorry, Alex, you were about to say something.
No, I'm just quoting Craig Patterson in the Discord server, saying that, or calling Darius Andre to come on, stating that he would like to do other things tonight other than waiting for him, which, fair enough. That's a completely fair statement. You know, I wouldn't want to wait to do a race over 2 laps, 3 laps, 4 laps, 5 laps. 6 is the most it can go to. Okay.
Indeed. Or 12 if you count the half laps as a lap.
No, that doesn't really. I don't believe in that.
I mean, you go from the start line to the finish line, it's just the wrong side, right?
I mean, you cross the finish line technically 3 times a lap? 4?
God, that's annoying.
Because you drive over it, then you go to the other side. Okay, 3 times. And then you actually cross the finish line.
Fair enough. It's a lovely course, I tell you. I mean, I don't know who actually modded this course. I don't believe it's entirely based on a real life Race of Champions circuit. It's certainly not one that I remember. So I assume that someone has gone out of their way to design this, and I'd like to compliment whoever did so. Right, this time we have Oliver Taras on the left-hand side in the yellow car, Owen Hogsvik on the right in the red car. Taras is the highest seeded driver. Hogsvik, who has driven in a couple of different championships this year, but didn't do a full season in any of his. And we're waiting to see the red lights go out. There we go, for the first of at least 2 races between this particular matchup. It was quite even as they crossed the start-finish line that time around. Sometimes you do see drivers getting an advantage at the start, but not this time. And once again, we will have to wait for the first real sector split in order to tell you exactly who ends up where and what we should end up waiting for. So Oliver Taras through the right-hander, over the bridge and towards the second part of the lap. You have to really ignore the oh god, hiccups, sorry. You have to really ignore the timing screen at this part of the circuit, because it does seem to keep on increasing the gap to a completely unrealistic level. And anyone watching this for the first time might panic that Hogsvik had an accident or something, but he should still be okay out there. And in fact, he's in the lead. So at the end of the first lap, Owen Hogsvik leads by 3.5 tenths of a second, and Oliver Taras is the driver on the back foot. We're now on board with our leader, Owen Hogsvik, heading through the left-hander, through the right, towards the barriers. Possibly a slight cut of the corner, but once again, that doesn't seem to matter, as the game doesn't seem to consider that a cut. Through the left-hander, just half a lap to go now, and he should still be the driver in front, because this has looked very clean indeed for Owen Hogsvik. Here we go then, past the sausage curbs, and we are soon to see the checkered flag. We've got a left-hander and a right-hander to go. The beautiful Mazda MX-5 buzz their way through the final corner. And is it still for Hogsvik? Oh, it's close! Oh, that's very close, and Taras gets it back. It's a recovery drive from Oliver Taras, and he wins the race by... Oh, less than a tenth of a second. It's just updated on the timing screen. Oliver Taras wins the race by 0.071. Fantastic little battle there between Oliver Taras and Owen Hogsvik. And I tell you what, Alex, this could go either way.
Yes, certainly. I think you saw on board with Phil Hogsvik. He was leading after the first lap, but into the tunnel, he just didn't get the greatest of exits, didn't get the greatest of sort of cornering performance. And I think that's really cost him quite a bit of time, really. It's an unfortunate thing, but obviously it will happen at some point where you're going to make a mistake in the middle of your lap, and it's just going to cost you literally on the line this time around the round win, which hopefully means that we'll have our first 3 rounds, although there's still a chance that Oliver Taras absolutely dominates in this second race, or again, we have a close finish. I think I would prefer either. Both work, and both are quite exciting.
Absolutely. So, going Phil Hogsvik this time will be on the left, Oliver Taras on the right, and Oliver will have to do it all over again if he is to go through. The fact that they crossed the line pretty much exactly together shows that this could still go either way, but it must go the way of Owen Phil Hogsvik if we are to go to a third little battle in this heat. Here we go then, the red light's coming on, and when they go off, we will once again be underway. This is the day where you see the most race starts of any GPVWC broadcast of the year, and once again, they were pretty much dead level as they go across the start line to start the second battle of the best of 3. Through a right-hander, over the curb, we've got a left-hander now. Still, you see how tight this course is. A little bit of an over rotation for Phil Hogsvik, but I don't think it matters much through that corner because it sets you up for the right-hander. Then we head towards that rock face. We go under the rock face here. It's a beautiful bit of scenery. The wall juts out slightly. You've got to be prepared for that. And then the left-hander where the car bottoms out slightly. And you've got to make sure that you have the grip for this section. I believe that there's no setup for these cars. I think it's a setup where you can't really influence how the car is managed. And Oliver Taras keeps the advantage, and the gap as they cross the line this time around is 0.6 of a second to Oliver Taras. Okay, this is looking good for him, although he was a little bit slidey through that left-hander there and took a bit much of the curbs on the right-hander. Could this be the undoing of Oliver Taras? He's got to keep it clean now. He has the advantage, and he will know that if he doesn't make a mistake, he should be the one going through to the round of 16. He's only got half a lap to go now. But again, he was a little bit wide there. This hasn't looked like the... Whoa! A massive jump! Now, this could easily go back the other way now. Owen Phil Hogsvik still has a real opportunity because Taras absolutely took flight over the sausage curb. He's the first driver that we've seen falling foul of something like that. It's going to be close, and it's Phil Hogsvik. It's going to be a split decision now, and we will have to wait for a third heat to decide who will go through to the round of 16. Alex, what a mistake Taras just made.
Yeah, but it was still equally close margins to what we had in that first sort of set of racing. And I think that's worked quite well for Phil Hogsvik. We have our first round of 3. And Taras has everything to make up for now. I think he just lost it in that long left-hander. And that sort of set him up wrongly, because I believe in the next corner after that, he tapped the wall on the inside. And I think that's just put him in a bad mood for the rest of that lap, and I think that has culminated its ugly head, jumping over those sausage curbs, which, like you were saying, will launch you if you do venture onto them, and that's a great example of exactly what they will do. I want to watch that again based on just how high Taras got thrown. He's lucky to have not gone into the wall, which was honestly what I was expecting to happen.
Domi Space, who I believe is Dominico Scarpelli, put in the YouTube chat, Ollie Taras jump scare. And yes, I think that is the best way of describing what just happened there. And I tell you what, that race was even closer than the first one somehow. The first one ended up with a gap of 7/10 of a second. So it was even closer than tenths of a second. And the second race ended up being separated by 600ths of a second. That is the closest finish that we have seen so far, despite the massive jump that Oliver Taras just achieved. I say achieved, although I don't think that was his aim. He just got slightly wide through the tunnel, and then that set him off badly for the little S complex afterwards. And now we'll have to wait to see whether he can keep it clean. I think Taras should be slightly quicker, but I think it's been mistakes in the first two races that have cost him the opportunity to go straight through. So we now wait to see them go out one last time. And I'm very glad that that's happened, actually, because the more races, the better. And if we do end up with drivers winning one race apiece, then that means we go to an extra round, which we wouldn't otherwise see. So it's Taras on the left, Phil Haugsvik on the right. And this is the tensest race that we've seen so far today, because whoever wins this goes straight through, no questions asked whatsoever, and away we go. Looks like an ever so slightly better start for Phil Haugsvik. Maybe 100th of a second as they crossed the start line, but that really won't matter much. Except maybe it will, because I tell you what, how close the finishes have been so far shows you that hundreds of a second, thousandths of a second, absolutely do matter here more than at any other race of the season. It's like a qualifying session out there. Oliver Taras towards the barrier, keeps it out of the wall, and once again heads under the rock face. You can see the slight tyre smoke that rises as the tyres scream forgiveness through the banking. And then we go back to the flat and level into the tunnel. Still a few over rotations here for Oliver Taras. He doesn't seem entirely hooked up, and that is what has cost him at least that second race. Here we go towards the end of the first lap. Goodness, we're going to have another close competition today. And across the line, the gap was just 300ths of a second to the advantage of Oliver Taras. So now we're on board with Phil Haugsvik, and he has, I would say he has it all to do, but to be honest, he only needs to gain 300ths of a second. That could be one over rotation for Oliver Taras, and it's basically handed to him on a plate. But this is completely too close to call. It's absolutely fantastic out there. And there are those massive sausage curbs that caught out Oliver Taras in that second of 3 races. We're heading towards the line now, just 2 corners to go. Who's it going to be, Oliver Taras or Owen Phil Haugsvik? It's still too close to call, and it's, with 1 corner to go, it's going to be Taras. Just it's Oliver Taras, and that gap was, come on timing screen, update us. I think it was 3, it was nearly 0.2 of a second, so it wasn't quite as close as the first 2 races. But it has gone the way of Oliver Taras, who wins our first split decision race, our first tiebreaker, and very much deserves to go through to the round of 16, having fought harder than anyone else has fought so far today. Alex, what a battle.
Yes, Oliver Taras, winner of the high jump and winner. Moving on to the round of 16. And I feel like, unfortunately for Phil Haugsvik, he sort of just couldn't get that last section hooked up, and he just couldn't get it to work the way that he wanted it to. He was struggling quite a bit to sort of try and push that Mazda MX-5, but yeah, in the end, I think that is deserved for Oliver Taras, especially given how close it was in that second race, even with that major mistake with him starting his own space program.
And that means that we have our first race of the round of 16 confirmed. Oliver Taras will face Alex Laho in tomorrow's round of 16. And from what we've seen so far, that should be a good one. Now, our next race will be, as I get my schedule back up, our next race will be Sandeep Singh versus Damier Katco. So Sandeep Singh, who competed in Super Lights this year, he was second in Super Lights behind only Alex Laho, took 3 victories in that. And I believe also did a couple of Super League races. Yes, he did, with a best result of 7th at the Belgian Grand Prix. As for Katco, he was mainly a Formula Sprint 2 driver, so I know him relatively well from racing him there. And I wish my hotbar wouldn't keep popping up right as I'm about to check someone's results. But yes, Katco was, by the looks of things, he was 23rd in Formula Sprint 2 this year. 0 victories, but he was on the podium at race 2 in Great Britain. And he also made a couple of outings in Formula Sprint 1 as well, but with no points to his name. So in theory, Sandep Singh should absolutely have the advantage here, but you never know which way it's going to go. We've had a couple of upsets so far today. We've had a couple of back and forth races, and I think I'm interested to see if Sandep Singh is as good in a Mazda MX-5 as he would be in a GPVWC car.
Yeah, and also we will have Patterson actually driving with I don't want to say a mystery entry, but an entry from nowhere. Lorenzo Eterovic will be fighting away with Craig Patterson after the battle between Singh and Katco. I don't know if you mentioned that. I wasn't, to be fair, paying that much attention, but we will have at least 16 races this time instead of 15, as we were looking to have, which means that Craig Patterson will not have it so easily getting into the round of 16. He still has to fight for it, like everyone else.
Yeah, so we've just been updated on that, actually. So my apologies for not bringing that up sooner, but we have literally... Well, actually, I couldn't have brought it up sooner. That was announced to us literally 1 minute ago. So after this battle between Sandep and Damier, we will actually have a race between Craig Patterson and it says here Lorenzo. Now, I'm a little confused because the top qualifier, who has not yet been put into the tournament tree, is Lorenzo de Tutis. However, I can see in the same Discord call as Craig Patterson, we have Lorenzo Eterovic Funcic. So I'm not actually 100% sure which Lorenzo is going to be taking part in this race. And I guess we have to wait and see, because I've literally just been told that it is Lorenzo, and yet not which Lorenzo it's going to be. So I guess we'll have to wait and see who turns up. But whoever it is, they've literally only just found out that they're going to be competing today, and that does mean that Darius Andre will not be competing. So now we wait to see what's going to happen with that one. But before then, we have Sandep Singh versus Damier Katco, Alex.
Yes, and I think a fight between SL2 and FS2 will be interesting to see. Of course, I was commentating Super Lights at the first, two-thirds. No, not two-thirds. The
been
first
a while,
part
hasn't
of
it?
the season. It has. It really has been almost, I'm calculating, 8 months, 7 months. Something along those lines. It's been a while since GPVWC has started in 2024. People ask me, what's your favorite race this season? I don't remember half of them. So, it's sad. My memory is fading.
Mine would be the British Grand Prix. I mean, I know I'm slightly biased as a Brit myself, and Silverstone is my favorite track. But that was quite a race. Ended up being won by Jan Grangthist thanks to a fantastic tyre strategy. But anyway, here we go. We've got Damier Katco on the left, Sandep Singh on the right. And for another matchup, we are underway. Off we go. Katco with a much better start, actually, so keep your eyes on that. We'll see if he maintains it to the split. I've just been updated by Remco that Lorenzo Eterovic is the driver who is taking part next time out versus Craig Patterson. So it is not Lorenzo de Tutis, it is Lorenzo Eterovic Funcic. And he attempted to qualify for this race, but was actually the bottom qualifier. So with all due respect to Lorenzo, I'm looking forward to seeing how well he can do against Craig Patterson. Anyway, back to this particular race that we're watching. Damier Katco leads us around the right-hand side of the circuit. The right-hand side, of course, based on the starting position. And that means he will cross the start-finish line on the left for the next lap. Confusing, I know. Through the tunnel they go, and we're about to see the first sector split. So let's see who leads out of Katco. Oh, it's close, and it is Katco. So Katco, who got an ever so slightly better start, leads Sandep Singh as a result of that. Except my live timing is saying something different. I swear we just saw with our own eyes that Katco was leading, but my timing screen is saying, no, it is saying he's leading, but it's saying he's leading by a second. It looked a lot closer than a second to me, so I'm not entirely sure if that is the whole truth. Anyway, we'll have half a lap to go in this one. Under the bridge we go, on board with Sandeep Singh. And if you're looking at this and thinking, that looks easy, I could do that, then, well, first of all, I'm sure it's not easy, but second of all, you can actually have a go next year, because if we do another GPVWC Race of Champions event, which I'm sure we will, you will be able to take part in the qualifying event. It is open to everyone, and Sandeep Singh touched the wall out of the final corner. I don't think he would have been up on Katco anyway, but it was very, very close, and Katco ended up with a significant win as a result of that. It was 7/10 of a second, but Singh would have been a heck of a lot closer had he not touched the wall there. Race 1 goes the way of Damier Katco, and this looks set to be an upset if Singh cannot win the second race of a best of 3. So now we have to wait to see if he can keep up this advantage, but it could very easily go back the way of Sandeep Singh, who is the higher seeded driver of the two, and just made a bit of a mistake in that last corner of the race, Alex. That's got to be so frustrating.
Yeah, but on these small courses, those mistakes do add up incredibly quickly, as Singh was showing there. But other than that, with the onboard that we were seeing, it looked incredibly clean for Singh based on what was actually happening. I mean, it was quite nice and mesmerizing to watch that final sector up until the contact that caused him to half spin. So, yeah, I think Singh still has the pace here, but it could be close, and hopefully it is close for the sake of competition. And I think everyone's sort of thoughts going into this was that Singh would have a bit of an advantage, of course. Slightly more impressive result than what Katco had per se in SL2, and yes, I think Katco with a great win, honestly, to start his sort of heat off, I believe is what we're calling it.
And I've just realised that I was updating the wrong bracket of the GPVWC Race of Champions spreadsheet, but oh well, I've got it back to the correct bracket now. So we wait for the second of the 3 battles between the two of them. And this will, of course, determine who goes through to the round of 16 if Damier Katco comes out ahead of Sandeep Singh. If it does not, then we go to just our second decider race of the afternoon, in which Singh will have another chance to prove that he is the top driver. So this time we will have Singh on the left and Katco on the right. And Singh goes back to the waiting area. Come on, Sandeep. Gotta get back out there. Okay, now we wait for the start. And you see the lighting gantry once again in the middle. I'm going to take a quick look back to the YouTube chat to see if anyone else has been sending messages. But while we wait for that, we can see the lights going out, and we're underway yet again with Sandeep Singh crossing the start line slightly ahead of Katco this time. Now that's something he couldn't do last time around. So does the slightly better start give Singh that advantage that he needs to carry through the race? Of course, he's starting on the opposite side of the grid today, which shouldn't really matter too much. I mean, they each have to do the same parts of the course, but they swap sides just in case, just for fairness's sake. And Sandeep this time over the bridge. We'll see if he has the advantage as they go through the sector split. A little wide in, tight out action from Sandeep through the left-hander there. You see a lot of drivers keeping it much tighter thanks to the banking, but Sandeep taking a slightly different line than the one we've seen from other drivers. It always amazes me that even on a track this short and small, you can still see the personality of each individual driver. And Singh did have the advantage by 0.6 of a second over Damier Katco this last time around. So Sandeep Singh gets that advantage that he didn't have in the last battle, and a big slide from Katco. I think that might have given it to Singh there, and we might well be going to just our second decider race of the evening. It would be fantastic stuff if we could. And half a lap to go. Sorry, I got a bit lost as to where we were on the track there. That's the confusing thing about having to wait for the drivers to complete a couple of different rounds of the course. But I do still think that Singh should have the advantage here. This hasn't been the best of laps from Damier Katco. Through the left-hander we go. It's almost infuriating not being able to see what Singh's doing, but this time he does take the win, and it's a considerable one at that. The advantage was 1.5 seconds. So they go into the final round, one win apiece. It's 1-1 between Singh and Katco. And that means that we go to a decider, and it could still go either way. Alex, I love it when this happens.
Yeah, it just looked like the car for Katco did not want to do anything that he put into it. He steered right, it went left. For all, for as far as he's concerned, that was pretty sort of unfortunate, sliding out of every corner. And I think it really cost him, especially in that last corner. Where you could see he was sliding all the way through, and it was just, I think he overcooked his rear tires, and as a result of that, he sort of had to worry about it as he went around the lap, and hopefully he'll learn from that mistake. But I think Singh as well just had an overall better run. I don't know just how quick he went, but he does have the third overall fastest time set on the server, which is a 52.477. So I would imagine that's what he's just set. Sorry, a 53.477. 52.477 would be a fastest time out of all of them. But yeah, I think Singh had a great start and had a great run. So there's still time for Singh to win this in our decider. And I think based on the run he's just had, he's certainly the favourite.
Okay, so one more to go, and I've seen someone in the YouTube chat, Galeforce97, saying Damier driving that thing like a rally car. Of course, the Race for Champions in real life has actually featured a few rally cars. It would be interesting to see what cars we end up using tomorrow. I've had a little sneak peek of some of them, but I can't announce them yet because I don't know whether I'm supposed to. Anyway, the race gets underway once again. Sandeep Singh ever so slightly ahead as they cross the start line. He's in the blue car. We're watching Damier Katco in that grey car, and he went a little bit wide. That's the mistake that we saw Taras making earlier on. Doesn't quite achieve the same kind of dramatic jump, but I think that's cost him a little bit of time there, and now he has it all to do. So, on board with Damier Katco, you can see his hands working on that left-hand side of the car. I wonder what view the drivers are actually driving from. I know there are a couple of different views available, and they certainly won't be driving from this view here. That would be quite a flex if they could. But if you are in cockpit cam, of course, you'll find yourself on one side of the car rather than in the middle. That's why I tend to go with bonnet cam for races like this, but I'm not sure if all of the drivers will prefer that. Out of the final corner, they go for this one lap, and Sandeep Singh has the advantage, just as he did after the last race, and it's half a second between the two of them. So Singh has just under half a second over Damier Katco, but Katco did make a mistake on that lap. If he doesn't make that mistake this time around, it could be much closer, and who knows, Sandeep Singh could always get it wrong himself. Not that Sandeep Singh is prone to getting things wrong. Through the left-hander he goes. We have half a lap to go. You can see the other car disappearing up the hill. That's the advantage of this side-by-side action. You can sometimes take a little bit of a sneak peek at what your opponent is doing, but it's not entirely representative of where they actually are in relation to you. The laps are slightly different lengths. And here we go through the final corner. So who gets it? Is it Sandeep Singh or Damier Katco? Across the line, and it's Singh. Sandeep Singh will go through to tomorrow's action despite a valiant effort from Damier Katco, and the gap at the end was half a second. So the second lap was pretty much the same between the two of them, but Singh had enough of an advantage to go through to the round of 16. Alex, that one was very well deserved.
Yeah, I think it's interesting with the view that we had in that last run was watching the difference between how Damier and Singh were driving those cars. Singh had a sort of calm demeanor behind the wheel, sort of not exactly soaring at it, but not being completely smooth with his inputs. But Damier just sort of threw the car into the corner, hoping it would stick. And I think that is what was meant by driving that thing like a rally car, which is sort of a valid strategy when it comes to driving a road car because they have enough grip where you can throw them into a corner, but enough keep it sort of sliding throughout, which can be beneficial, especially in those tighter sort of corners, which you do get when you're starting on the left-hand side of the circuit, because you go straight into that sort of weavy cul-de-sac section, I want to say, where it constantly doubles back on itself. There you go, in the shot. You've got about 6 hairpins in a row, and that does tend to help with the sort of slidey driving style. But I think in that latter part of the circuit where it does start to smoothen out in those banked left-handers, I think that's where smoothness would really help.
All right. So we have our first update to the schedule. And actually, we should have our second, because if you look there at the top right, I hate to be a bit of a party pooper, but it still says 2023. So that should probably be updated, but that's okay. Yeah, so our first update to the schedule, as I explained before, we're going to now have Craig Patterson versus Lorenzo Funcic, despite Lorenzo not actually qualifying for this event, so it's very interesting to see him out there, but I guess that's what happens when one of your opponents fails to turn up. Craig should theoretically have quite a significant advantage here. Craig was the runner-up in the Formula Sprint 2 Championship this year, coming 3rd position in that one, whereas Lorenzo Funcic did not have quite the same season, and actually was the slowest qualifier for this particular event. And I say all of this with the utmost respect to Lorenzo. It's fantastic to see him out there having a good time, but it would be quite a shock if he was able to get a result from this one, especially against someone of the might of Craig Patterson. A former teammate of mine, Craig, actually. We go way back. We were teammates in the WCS League Renault Megane Cup. I don't know if anyone else remembers WCS League. That was a long time ago, but yeah, Craig absolutely wiped the floor with me in that championship, and very much deserves to do the same today. Craig Patterson through the left-hander now. We're heading towards the end of the first official lap, so we'll see the first sector split in his lovely blue-coloured Mazda. I tell you what, that's probably my favourite liveried Mazda of the day so far. I just think that colour works well with a car like that. And where is Lorenzo? Oh, okay. Lorenzo hits the wall coming out of the final corner, and the gap is 6 seconds. That's unfortunately the largest gap that we've seen at the end of the... Oh, and he's crashed it. Lorenzo Funcic has crashed it at the top of the hill. He may still have a chance of finishing, but I'm afraid to say this has been... Well, come on. I think... How many... This isn't exactly a 3-point turn. Oh! Craig's hit him! Goodness me, Craig was not expecting him to be right there as he came over the hill. I don't know where the marshals were with the yellow flags, but I was not expecting to see an actual collision today. That was crazy. They're in a Discord call together. Why wasn't Lorenzo saying, "Come on, Craig, avoid me"? Whoa, crunch. Okay, well, Craig's going to win this race. Pretty much no questions asked. Across the line he goes. Well, he will in a second, rather. Probably with quite a bent Mazda MX-5. And he crawls his way across the line. Now, is Lorenzo going to bother finishing? He's still got over half a lap to go. And that's got to be one of the funniest races I've ever seen. That rival, I tell you what, I don't know if you saw this race last year, Alex, but Joe Gillette, absolutely legend that he is, managed to prop his car up on his side, managed to roll, I think was it an Alpine Cup car? Something like that. Anyway, managed to prop it up 90 degrees to the floor, and I'm still not entirely sure how he managed to do that. But I think that rivals what we saw that year, an actual collision between two cars. Lorenzo doing about a 24-point turn, and eventually ending up still pointing backwards thanks to Craig punting him around. Crazy scenes here at the GPVWC Race of Champions.
You say that, but I think there's a bit more to it. We did have a collision, that's the first time that's happened, but Lorenzo has also been lapped in Race of Champions. Just putting it out there. I think it is a product of not really having much practice, being a mystery contender, just being welcomed into the event for purposes of entertainment, it would seem. I wonder if this is what we're doing. We're just going to have one joke entry to have a bit of entertainment and a bit of interest in the middle of the race champions.
Indeed. Well, once again, if you are listening to this, Lorenzo, we mean absolutely no ill will whatsoever. You are awesome. And I tell you what, it's in his defense, he didn't know he was doing this race until the event was already underway. And he probably hasn't even driven this car before. The car that was used in qualifiers was the Alpine Cup car. So a Mazda is slightly different. Admittedly, they're not they're not chalk and cheese, but it is definitely a different car. And I would say he won't have done any practice for this race in this vehicle. But anyway, this time around, Lorenzo will be on the left, Patterson will be on the right, and I think if we saw an improvement from Aterovic in this race, I think that would be all that we could ask for. If he keeps it out of the barriers, if he keeps it the right way around, if he doesn't somehow end up making contact with Craig Patterson, then I think we should all give him a round of applause for that. But let's face it, Craig has pretty much no competition here and will almost undoubtedly go through to the second round. But as a formality, let's wait and see as the lights come on and we'll go out. And off we go once again in the Race of Champions. Lorenzo Atericic-Funcic in the grey car and Patterson in the blue car. A little bit wide for Funcic over the grass. Keep it off the wall here. It's the bridge that I'm really cautious of, because that of course takes you into that tricky banked left-hander, and that's where it all went wrong a lap ago, or a race ago, sorry. To the right-hander. The first half a lap relatively clean. Might have been a little tag on the wall there, but he may have got away with it. Now we get to the scary bit, the bridge. Come on, Lorenzo, keep it the right way around, and he does. So he's beaten the first race at least. Into the left-hander, slight tag on the wall, nothing major. I think he would have got away with that in reality as well. It was just a little kiss. This is much better for him, Lorenzo. I don't want to jinx him or anything, but come on, man, you're getting it. And at the end of the first split, if he's within 6 seconds of Craig, then he's doing better than he did in the first race. It's 4 seconds. He's doing better. So that is an improvement of about 2 seconds. I tell you what, some people would give their bottom dollar to improve their lap times by 2 seconds, and Lorenzo has just done that. So we have to give take our hats off to that at least. Craig Patterson through the left-hander under the bridge. Half a lap to go now before he is confirmed as moving on to the second round, a round of 16, which will take place tomorrow. Over the curbs himself. Wide, but actually it wasn't as wide as it looked. I think it's just because the camera we're on board is looking slightly diagonally through the car. One more corner to go for Craig, and he will move on to the round of 16. Across the line, easy peasy. Now, is Lorenzo the right way round? He is! Everybody celebrate as he crosses the finish line, and the gap, that would have been about 6 seconds, I think. It's about to update itself. 7.7. I tell you what, that's a heck of a lot better than the first race. So round of applause to Lorenzo, who did not know he was doing this race until literally about 10 minutes ago, and probably has never driven this car on this course before, might not have even driven this car before. And as much as we did make fun of him for how badly that first race went, he showed real improvement, and hats off to him for actually doing this and giving us something to watch. Whereas otherwise, Craig would have got an automatic bye to tomorrow's action. So congratulations to Craig for getting through. Well done to Lorenzo for giving that a go in the first place. And Alex, what an entertaining sequence of races.
Yeah, I think that this was more of a fun race than a serious race. And Lorenzo just drove that point home with that incident in the first set of laps, and I think it is quite funny to have someone both collide with their opponent and be lapped. No ill intent, but I do believe it is just quite funny.
Okay, we will now have a short break, I'm being told, but we will be back in just a few minutes' time for our next competition, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back, everyone, to the 2024 Race of Champions. I'm still Caitlin Penny. I'm still joined by Alex Foulkes, and of course, our broadcast director is still Remco de Zeeuw. The only thing that isn't the same is that we have actually had another change to the schedule, and that's one of the reasons we took a break, because we were running behind the schedule and we wanted to work out exactly what is going on next. You can see on the provisional entry list that Maggio versus Joffert was supposed to be the next race. They are not actually ready yet, so we are skipping them, and we're going to Mark Schluter versus Eric Kumandi. Mark Schluter, of course, was third in the Super League Championship this year, my apologies. He was fighting for second right up until the end. He took 3 victories at the round in Imola, at the Red Bull Ring and at Interlagos, and it was one of the breakthroughs of the season, and as such will be one of the highest ranked drivers in this. He's actually the 3rd seeded driver in this championship, and therefore a real contender. Eric Kumandi was one of the drivers who had to qualify for this event, and as such we're expecting him to be quick, but not necessarily quick enough to beat Mark Schluter. We'll have to wait and see as far as that goes. Eric has not been racing in any of the career ladder series, although we believe he has done a couple of Academy Series races. He definitely did the last Academy race. Oh, but he has hit the wall, so this may be a catch-up race now for Eric Kumadi, who has hit the barriers and slides his... Oh, and he's hit the wall again. And that should give the first of the 3 races to Mark Schluter, depending on how things are going for him. But that was a big mistake there for Eric, and should put him massively on the back foot, Alex.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's just a case of stage fright and not a case of, I don't want to say lack of practice, but being out of practice per se for Kumandi. I would like to see a close race, no disrespect to Kumandi, of course, but it is one of our highest seeded drivers versus one of our lowest seeded drivers, so I suppose mistakes are expected. But here's Schluter now through the last corner, and I think, or is it through the last corner? No, of course not.
Okay, well, Kumandi, I'm a little bit confused actually, because on the entry list I've been given, his name is spelt Kumandi. However, on the server, the N is missing. It's spelt Kumedi. So I'm a little surprised, or a little confused as to what his correct name is. And if anyone could update me on that, then please do let me know. Oh, let me check the Discord. I wonder if it's in the Discord.
That's exactly what I was about to do.
Mark Schluter is about to win, and there he goes. He is 1-0 up over Eric, who made it rather easy for him in that one, I'm afraid to say. But Eric has another chance. He has a shot at redemption. And according to the Discord server, actually, his name is Kumedi without the N. So I believe that it is wrong on our spreadsheet, and I will actually go and correct that ASAP. Apologies about that, Eric, if you are listening, and sorry for saying your name wrong at the start of the broadcast. I do have to admit, I've never actually commentated on Eric Racing before, but of course we can correct that as we go along now, because we have his correct name thanks to his Discord profile.
Yeah, that's awkward. I thought when I was watching the Academy broadcast to see what races he'd done, which is the last race, Brazil, round 18 of the Academy series, if you want to go and watch that later. I don't actually know what happened. It was probably interesting. As Academy, something always happens. But I thought he spelled his name wrong, but I will correct myself. He spelled his name right, and we've got it wrong. So,
well, it wasn't me. It was whoever initially did the spreadsheet, so blame them.
I don't actually know how, because... Oh no. No, Menno has it written down here as Eric Kumedi, so I don't know how it's ended up as Kumandi in the spreadsheet.
Maybe that just felt right. I don't know. But anyway, no, it's okay. Sometimes mistakes like that happen, and we have corrected it in our spreadsheet now, so it is indeed Eric Kumedi who will be starting on the left-hand side of the grid, and Mark Schluter who will be starting on the right. And once again, if Mark Schluter wins this battle, then he will end up going through to the round of 16 tomorrow. and good luck to whoever faces him, because Mark has always been one of our greatest drivers. Here come the lights, and when they go out, we will be underway and go once again. So Schluter on the right, Kumed on the left. Kumed slightly ahead across the start-finish line that time around. That was a decent start for Eric, but he has to keep it out of the barriers now to see if the rest of the lap can go his way. And what's happened to Kumed? Kumed has DNF'd. Now, I was looking away right as that happened, so I didn't see if we witnessed a crash or anything, but that means that Mark Schluter's confirmed through. Alex, did you see what happened?
I did not. He was spun round at the first bridge, and he's then gone back to the pit lane, the waiting area. I don't know what we call it, but yeah, he was spun round at the underneath the bridge, which is the same place he spun the first time. So that's quite unfortunate. But it does mean for Schluter, it is guaranteed now to go through to the round of 16.
Okay, well, I've just looked back and it appears to have been a disconnection. So unfortunate stuff there for Eric Kumed, and that means that Mark Schluter will go through to the round of 16, and what we're seeing now is basically a victory lap. Even if he wasn't to finish this one, I believe he would still be confirmed as the winner. So Mark Schluter goes through. We don't yet know who is going to be facing him tomorrow, because that will be decided in the race that will take place later between two of our qualifiers, Michael Falkenhayn and Shimon Kanda. Next on the schedule, let me just update, actually, yeah, while we're talking, I'm going to update the live time and see. Someone's done it for me. Thank goodness. And thank you to whoever has done that. But yes, Mark Schluter is confirmed through to tomorrow's action, and we just wait to see who he will be up against and who will be joining him in the other rounds.
And that was
Okay,
a shorter round than we were expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like the next race up, because I believe that the race between Maggio and Joffert is still postponed. Joffert is still not quite ready yet, but we're delaying that until he is ready. I believe the next one should be Shimon Frelick versus Robin Merling. So Shimon is a driver who I've known for a long time. He's actually a cameraman as well, so I've worked with him. And he, of course, did very well in the FS1 championship. Let me check his results. He was 4th in FS1 this year, despite missing several races, and took a win in pretty much every round that he ended up doing. Was not able to drive in any SL2 races, but did actually skip straight to SL1, finishing 10th at the Singapore Grand Prix. So a very competitive driver is Shimon Frelick. As for Robin Merling, let me look up his results while we're waiting. He did 2 super lights races with a best result of 14th position, but he was mainly a competitor in Formula Sprint 1, where he didn't take any victories, but did end up on the podium in race 1 in Belgium. Look out for Robin as well. He's competitive, but definitely the favourite going into this one should be Shimon Frelick. The board you're seeing there says it's supposed to be Mateusz Piszczan he's up against, but Mateusz is unfortunately not racing today. So that is why there's a discrepancy between what you're seeing and what you're hearing. Indeed, Robin Merling is going to be up against Shimon Frelick, and that is a rather late change according to our timing screen, Alex.
Yeah, honestly, no clue what's going on at this point. I'm just here for the ride. I'm looking at the timings. Timings? Is that what we're calling them? Because we can't call it the timing screen, because that's a different thing. We need a name
the
for
live
this.
timing.
The schedule? We'll call it the schedule. There we go. Of course, why didn't I think of that in the first place?
Okay. Well, we do also have live timing, so if you are watching along and you want to keep up with what's going along, make sure you go to raceview.com, that's race-view.com, and then look for GPWC Sim Racing #2, that is the server that we are part of, and if you get that up, then you will be able to see the live timing screen. Only trust the gaps when they've completed one lap, because the sector times are different on each side of the circuit, so definitely make sure you wait until they've completed a lap before judging who's ahead. But yeah, if you can get the hang of that, then it should tell you roughly who's where and who is likely to come out on top. You can see the other matchups that we're waiting for there on your screen: Maggio versus Joffert, Martin versus Stefano, Micah versus Nox, Stevens versus Gale, Ockenhaug versus Magorgi, Falkenhayn versus Kanda, and Thylin versus Kurashavin, which will take us up to about 10 o'clock tonight. Probably quicker than that, actually. We have been getting through these relatively quickly. And then, of course, we have the finals tomorrow, the round of 16, followed by the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals. And there's also going to be a third place playoff to decide who will be the bronze medalist at the end of all of this. So here we go then, changing over to our race session. Robin Merling is on the left in the light blue car. Shimon Frelick will be on the right. We haven't yet seen his livery, but I think the liveries are fairly random. And when he appears, the race will be set to get underway. When they both appear, here we go. Wait for the lights. I believe we're well over halfway through today's action now. Although it's confusing because we have skipped a couple of races and come back to them. But we've seen a good few races so far. Only 2 races that have gone to a tiebreaker, but I think that is more than we had at this point last year. Away they go. I think Frelick had a slightly better start than Merling did, and is the higher seeded driver, so definitely watch for Shimon Frelick coming across the line in first position. And we'll wait to see if Robin Merling has anything to say about that, whether he can catch up and pull that gap back. A little bit of an over-rotation there. Possibly a little bit of time lost with the friction that will generate. And he rubs up against the wall through the right-handed final corner. And on to the second half of the first lap. So, Alex, I know you missed the start of the broadcast, so I haven't really had a chance to ask you this, but what do you think of this track-car combination? It's the same track we were using last year, but I think the Mazdas are beautiful around here.
Well, I like the car. I just don't think I like the track per se. I think it seems a little unbalanced. I think if you got the right side of the circuit in that second sort of half of the second lap, of course I can't speak English today apparently, but I feel like you're more likely to make a mistake there because I feel at this last part of the lap on this side it seems a little bit easier, where it's just a couple of high-speed swingy corners, but you still have to manage it a little bit. But on this side it's just a bunch of hairpins. Like you got hairpin 1 and then you go into another hairpin and then a third hairpin, so there's a lot of opportunities to make mistakes if you're finishing on this side, as Frelick does himself. Touches the grass on the inside, and I think this will be pretty close to the line.
And Frelick gets it.
Completely wrong.
It's 1-0 to Shimon Frelick now as he crosses the line, 0.6 of a second up. 1.3 seconds up, so 0.6 was the gap after the first lap, and he pretty much doubled that and added a bit more on that second lap. Great stuff from Shimon Frelick, and he is going to be very tough to beat the second time around. I will say, I understand your point there, Alex, because of course the first lap is pretty much equal, but as you go into the second lap, I guess one side of the track might be trickier at high speed than the other. But it is relatively even because they swap sides going into the second of the 3, and I guess the only time that would end up really mattering is if it's a best of 3.
Which we could always hope for. I mean, it would make it quite interesting, and I think it's definitely possible with the 2 drivers that we have currently. I'd love to see it. And I'd love to see all of them go to a best of 3 to be beat. To be completely honest. Oh, I can't English today. I really can't speak at all.
That's okay, that's okay. Well, we have just a little while to wait. You don't have to worry about the timer on the top left. We're not waiting the full 10 minutes. We do have a race director on standby to skip that time when the drivers are ready, which they should be any second now. And by the way, whoever wins this will go up against Jan Dragoon tomorrow. So we saw Jan Dragoon earlier on. He defeated Kurt Rotjav. Whoever wins this battle between Fric and Merling will go up against Jan Dragoon in tomorrow's action. I like this stage of the competition because rather than just confirming the drivers that are going through, we're also confirming who they are going up against in tomorrow's action. And I think that's very exciting indeed. The only race we know for sure about so far is that Alex Laho will face Oliver Taras tomorrow. And then, of course, whoever wins this will go up against Jan Dragoon. So, onto the grid we go. 2 laps ahead of us, 4 times around, or 4 times across the finish line. It's one of the only circuits in the world where you can really say something as confusing as that, but that's how the Race of Champions works. It's just like it is in the real world. And once again, the lights go out and off we go. This time, Fric is on the left, that is driver's left. And once again gets an ever so slightly better start than Robin Merling, unless I'm very much mistaken. Over the curbs he goes, little bit of dirt kicked up, but that's okay. If you take the dirt on the inside, you also shorten your path, so I don't think that costs you too much at all. Now we head through this tight little sequence of corners, followed by the double apex right-hander. Always a tricky one, because it threatens, it tempts you to turn in too early for that second corner towards the end of the circuit. And then of course you have this turn which is slightly cambered, and that will be another really difficult one. On board with Shimon Fric, he really likes to rotate the rear of the car. He's driving it with the accelerator, you can tell that just by his driving style, but he's very tight into that final left-hander there. A lot of other drivers don't quite do that. Shimon Fric across the line in the lead after the first lap. The gap was 0.7 of a second. That's more than he had after the first lap on the first race. So I think Fric should have this, so long as he doesn't make any mistakes on the second lap. Here is Robin Merling, taking it tight over the curbs on the inside. And this could be his last lap of the competition unless he can pull out something excellent, or Shimon Fric makes a mistake. Now we cross the start-finish line, but it's not the finish line yet. He's got to do one more half lap of the course. Possibly the trickier side. It's definitely the tighter side. Over the curbs, through the right-hander. A couple of hairpins still to go. And I think that Shimon Fric should have this one. You just saw him disappearing out of view and into the tunnel at the top of the screen there. And towards the line they go, and it is Shimon Fric who wins this one 2-0. That last lap was closer, and the gap stayed at about 0.7, I think. Stayed at 4.5, so it did actually come down. That last lap was quicker for Robin Merling, but it doesn't matter because Shimon Fric crossed the line first, and so he will go through to the round of 16 tomorrow and will face Jan Dragoon in the finals. Fantastic stuff there, and Alex, I'm looking forward to seeing Fric versus Dragoon. They're both very competitive. They're 2 drivers I've known for a long time, and that should be quite a showdown.
Yes, certainly, and I think it could potentially be one of the more interesting races that we'll have tomorrow. Apart from the final, of course, that'll be obviously the most interesting because it's the final, and that's always interesting. Hopefully, it might be a 2. Is it a best of 5 for the final? Am I being silly?
I think it was last year, unless I'm very much mistaken, but yes.
So it's a best of 5, so it could be won in 3 races. It could be won in, well, it will be won in 3 races, but you might have at least 4. I'd hope at least 4. But we're all aiming for 5 full races in the final.
Yes, indeed. That would be quite something to see. But anyway, we're waiting to see who's going to be in this next matchup, because of course we shuffled the order around a bit. Someone has just joined the server who is literally called Your Name. Now, I've seen that before. Didn't that happen in the Super League Young Drivers test? So I'm trying my best to remember who that actually is. Might be Silver Yoffert. But anyway, Your Name has joined the YouTube chat. Sorry, not the YouTube chat, the race view. Although that does remind me, I have to check the YouTube chat. And it is indeed Silver Yoffert. So the next race will be the delayed Silver Yoffert versus Alessandro Maggio, as I sound like a train conductor. The next race will be the delayed 2024 train to Birmingham New Street. And Alessandro Maggio, who was the top driver from the Super League Young Drivers test this year, who also competed in various other championships. Let me look up his results. quickly while we're waiting. Maggio. I accidentally searched up Magnussen, and then I was confused as to why he came second in FS2. But yeah, that was not the correct driver. Alessandro Maggio was, of course, 9th place in the Super Light Championship this year, with 1 victory to his name, and also competed in 3 Super League Grand Prix, with a best result of 9th at the Chinese Grand Prix. So definitely a real contender. As for Silver Yoffert, he was much more active in FS1, I think. I was going to say FS2. Never mind, he didn't compete in either. I'm doubly wrong. Silver Yoffert doesn't appear to have competed in the career ladder this year. May have competed in Academy, but unfortunately the website is down, so I cannot double check that fact. But whatever the case, Maggio will go up against Yoffert, and they will also do a best of 3, just as we've seen everyone else do today. Alex, are you a bit more familiar with Silver's competitions than I am?
No, actually, I don't think I am. He might have done one of the Academy races that I commentated on, but I've done 2, which were Britain and Hungaroring, and I don't remember him in either of them. So, once again, a driver we haven't really seen much of, mainly because we don't, I don't want to say pay attention, but we don't look too deeply at Academy Series.
Fair enough, fair enough. I tell you what, we were talking about our favourite races earlier on, and I brought up the British Grand Prix. Now that you've reminded me of the Academy Series, I've got to bring up the race we did at the Autodrom Most. Absolutely fantastic racetrack in the Czech Republic, which I completely underappreciated until we ended up doing that race. And that was one of the best races of the season, in my opinion. A lot of attrition, especially in the second race. Only 10 cars crossed the finish line at the end of that one. But I was 3rd, despite having been spun off earlier on. So I was very happy with that one. And like I said, an absolutely thrilling track that was fantastic to race on. So yeah, that's got to be one of my favourites from the year as well. But less about Academy, more about the GPVWC Race of Champions. Alessandro Maggio will be the favourite coming into this one. What's his seed? He is the 8th seeded driver, having finished 9th in Super Lights this year, as I get the hiccups once again. And if Alessandro Maggio wins this race, he will go up against Casper Kurit tomorrow. Casper Kurit, who of course defeated Frank Hamming earlier on in the first shock result of the day. And that would be our round of 2 lineup if it was to go his way. So, hurry up guys, what are you doing? We're still waiting for them to appear on the grid. We've been waiting a little while, but eventually we should get the delayed race between Maggio and Joffert. Nearly half an hour late, but oh well, at least we got to it in the end. While we continue to wait, Alex, trying to think of a question I could ask you, but my mind is completely blank. How are you?
Well, I'm actually really tired, but that's beyond the point. I think our last couple of races will be quite exciting, though. That's the one thing I do want to talk about is those last few races do look very, very competitive, especially Ockenhaug versus Magalgi. That one will be probably the one I'm looking forward to the most. I think Ockenhaug is a very, very strong driver. Same with Magalgi. Both of them? No, not both of them. Coming in from a series. Only Ockenhaug came in from a series. As far as I can tell, Magalgi had to qualify.
Indeed. I've just looked at the YouTube chat as well to check what's going on. Mayek asks, it would be great to see the lap times for the drivers. Yes, I do apologize that I'm not updating you with those. Last year I was, but this year I'm significantly more busy because I'm also updating the tournament page as we're going along. So I do apologize about that, but if you do want to see the live timing, then of course go to RaceView, that is race-view.com or race-view.com. But anyway, that will show you the lap times that the drivers are doing, and you'll be able to keep track of what's actually going on. So anyway, Maggio versus Yoffert. We're still waiting for it to get underway. Both drivers are in the session. Remco has pinged me and said Silver can't get his game to work properly, hence the delay. I was wondering about that because he was in the server with a slightly bizarre name, but he did seem to be in the server. So, as far as I'm aware, if he can get in, then there shouldn't really be an issue. Just noticed Wesley Stefano's joined the server, but a bit early, I'm afraid. Unless... Okay. Alright, thanks Remco. Yep, Remco's just updated me that we're actually skipping Maggio versus Joffert yet again, and that's why Stefano has arrived. So the next race is going to be Carlos Martin versus Wesley Stefano, and we will still have to further delay Maggio versus Joffert. So if you don't know these drivers, Carlos Martin was racing in Super League this year, took a very emotional victory at the Canadian Grand Prix, his first victory in GPVWC Super League on his way to 6th place in the championship. And after that particular race, he was literally crying in the interview room. It was fantastic to see the emotion coming out of that one, and it was very well deserved indeed. As for Stefano, I'm sure a lot of you are probably not particularly familiar with the name, but I am, because I used to race him way back in the day. Earlier on, I mentioned the WCS League McGann series, which took place, 5+ years ago. And Wesley was actually in that championship. I remember having a great battle with him one year at the Norris Ring in those McGanns. But he has not been active in GPWC as far as I'm aware, unless he's done any of the Academy Series races that I missed. I haven't seen him in GPWC this year. So this is a welcome back to Wesley Stefano and welcome to the grid. And I'm sure this will be the first time that a lot of the people tuning in today will have actually seen him race. But my goodness, Alex, does he have a titan to go up against in the GPWC Super League race winner, Carlos Martin?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to say about either of them. I don't know that much, but I do know Martin is a very, very competent driver, especially in Super League. It doesn't look that impressive when you look at the timing sheets, but not the timing sheets, but the standings where it's a couple of DNFs. But you still have to consider it's within Super League that this is happening, so it's pretty difficult to get into the higher end of those points. And especially in the standings where we have most of the best drivers in GPVWC in the highest rung of the career ladder, as we started calling it. Ladder metaphor makes sense.
I get it. Well done. Yes. Alex Martin, of course, also known from being very good in... Why do I keep... Who is Alex Martin? I'm sure that's a person, right?
I'm sure there's someone in the world called Alex Martin.
No, there's someone famous. It's like... It's not a motorbike rider, because that would be... who is the guy who's literally just won MotoGP? This is not interesting whatsoever. There was someone called Martinator. I think, was it Jorge Martin? Something like that. Anyway, so that's not him. And I'm very confused as to where I've got the name Alex Martin from. It might just be because I'm talking to you. But anyway, Carlos Martin is very good in a go-kart as well. I raced him at GPWC Day last year in Milton Keynes, nicknamed him Kartin Martin. And this year, I believe he was actually beaten by Jan Grankvist, unless I'm very much mistaken. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go, but I was told that Jan won the karting. I guess there's no real surprise there, because Jan is extremely good. But, I mean, Carlos is, to use a bit of a internet term, a little bit of a try-hard when it comes to karting. He's got his own custom helmet and all of that stuff. But anyway... and now we have to see if he's any good in a Mazda MX-5 Cup car, because he will be on the right-hand side. Wesley Stefano will be on the left in the green car. And they have a best of 3 ahead of them to determine who will go through into tomorrow's race. And I'll quickly check who they will go up against if they go through to tomorrow's action. Where are they on my leaderboard? It's actually not been confirmed yet, so this is the first race of this particular bracket. So, when the lights go out, we'll be underway, and Off we go once again. Carlos Martin gets an ever so slightly better launch, crosses the line maybe a tenth of a second, maybe a hundredth of a second ahead of Carlos Martin, and heads into the, well, he would have headed into the tunnel. Martin himself is heading over the hill. Carlos Martin is taking a very tight line through there, as we've seen pretty much everyone do. It's really the only way around that section, especially considering it's so slow. You would lose a lot of time on the outside, and there's literally no point going out there. Across the line he goes, but he's still got to do another half lap to get around to the timing line, and then we will see if he has maintained his advantage over the veteran of sim racing, Wesley Stefano, who I was quite amazed to see on the on the entry list today, I'm not going to lie. Through the right-hander we go, and it's close. Ooh, that's a good lap there from both of them. And the gap was just 1/10 of a second between Martin and Stefano. Very good stuff. Martin's lap was a 57.6. I tell you what, apparently the fastest lap time we've seen is Alessandro Maggio with a 52.7. That's according to the live timing. But of course, the laps we've just seen have been from a standing start, so that's not entirely representative. But as far as first laps go, that was pretty darn good from Carlos Martin and Wesley Stefano. And now they have just one more lap to go before we see who takes the victory in the first of this particular best of three. Stefano about to head through the long tunnel and out towards the timing line. Out to the final corner he goes. Oh, it's close again, and it's just Martin. So, Martin led by a tenth after the first lap. The gap at the line was 0.2 of a second, about a quarter of a second all in all. And that means that this will be a fantastically close race going into battle number 2. Carlos Martin just a quarter of a second ahead of Wesley Stefano, not even that. And this is one of the best races we've seen so far, Alex. Great stuff.
Yes, certainly. And I do have to point out that that fastest lap by Maggio was set while he was in the warm-up session waiting for Silva to sort out the problem with your name, which I do find quite comical, to be fair.
Yes.
When someone joins into the server as your name, you do have to change it in the R-Factor 2 UI. If you don't, you end up joining as your name, and it's quite unfortunate. But we do have 2, hopefully, more races between Martin and Stefano, possibly. Although it could be just one if Martin is able to take the win in this second race. And I think, based on that first performance, it's going to be very close.
I've just looked up who Alex Martin is because I was very confused as to why I kept saying Alex. Apparently he is a real-life racing driver who takes part in the British GT Championship, which would make sense because I went to a round of the British GT Championship this year at Silverstone, so obviously my brain got stuck in gear. But anyway, away we go once again, and again it was Martin who was ever so slightly ahead across the start-finish line, and as we saw in race 1, that can potentially do all of the damage when it comes to these races. Stefano through the tight section after the banking and through the tunnel now, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the times are like at the end of the first split, because this has all the hallmarks of a race that could go all the way, Alex.
Yeah, it's very impressive watching the difference between the less confident drivers and the more confident drivers, especially with that onboard shot. You could just see how much Wesley was pushing into that tunnel. I mean, that's probably one of the fastest entries into the tunnel we've seen all day so far. And I think it's going to be very close this time around on the line, but it's going to be a push right to the end. And that's the fortunate thing about this sprint format. I think I'm going to call it, as Martin is ever so slightly ahead across the line there.
He was.
I don't know.
But it was 0.04 of a second. Goodness me. So less than 0.5 of a second between them. And this is pretty much neck and neck now. So Carlos Martin, we're riding on board with. We're looking diagonally across to the steering wheel on the left-hand side of the car. Across the line he goes. I wonder if this is like the radicals we had last year, where you could choose to have the driving side on the left or the right. I don't know if that matters at all in terms of weight distribution. Maybe it does, but I don't know if they've modded that in to this car. But anyway, Martin now through the left-hander, through the tunnel, towards the timing line. Who's it going to be? Do we go to a deciding race? Up to the line we go, and it's Stefano! We will go to a decider, and what a fantastic finish that was. And the gap at the end, I'm waiting for it to update. And again, it's about the same as race 1 actually, but the other way. So again, it's about 1/4 of a second, not even that, just over 2/10 of a second. Stefano wins it over Martin. And Alex, we're going to a decider.
Yeah, and this one will be closer than I think any race we've had so far. And it'll definitely be an interesting final race. I hope it won't come down to a mistake. I hope it will come down purely to just genuine not straight line, overall pace is what I'd hope for. I don't think there's a difference in straight line speed. I don't think there's a setup. So there shouldn't be a difference in straight line speed apart from exits. But I think it should be a nice, intense last little heat between Stefano and Martin that we are very much excited for. I do have to point out, if you look at the Race of Champions spreadsheet, I'm very interested to know why the result for Alessandro Maggio between and Silver Yuffet is bye.
Well, that would indicate that Silver Yuffet would not be making it, but we will confirm that in due time. But anyway, back to Stefano versus Martin. Stefano, of course, had to qualify for this race. He was the 3rd fastest qualifier. Therefore, this is the 4th seeded driver versus the 29th seeded driver. And this would be a major upset if Wesley Stefano was to take this one away from Carlos Martin. And probably the biggest upset that we will see today. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing this 3rd race and which way it will go. Stefano is on driver's left. Martin is on driver's right in the white car. And when the lights go out, we will have just our 3rd tiebreaker of the day. And away we go, up the hill. Carlos Martin in danger of being our first Super League driver knocked out of the competition. Through the left-hander, towards the barriers. The wall juts out, but he avoids it. To the left-hander now. He'll use a lot of the curb on the outside. Hopefully doesn't get unsettled too much. The car looks fine. Through the left-hander, under the tunnel. Listen to the roar, listen to the buzz. Another left-hander now, towards the end of the first half lap. We were riding on board with the 6th place Super League driver who won the Canadian Grand Prix way back in the first half of the year. Left-hander now. Just one more corner before the first timing line in this race. And before we see who comes out on top. Oh, and once again it's close and Stefano leads. Wow, we could absolutely have an upset here. It's 1/10 of a second. That's how close it is. This could go either way. Any mistakes would decide this race now. Stefano kicking up a bit of dust, but like I said earlier, you can do that through that corner. You can afford to do so. Into the right-hander. I very much hope that neither of these drivers are encouraged to push the car over the limit. You've got to push it to the limit and absolutely no further. Once again, the tyres absolutely screaming enough through that corner. You see the tyres smoke rising as they go over the banking. I wouldn't be surprised if the cars bottom out horribly there. And now we have just one corner to go before we find out who will go through to the round of 16. Do we have a major switch up in the order out of the final corner? We do! Wesley Stefano wins the race and knocks out Carlos Martin, the Super League race winner. That is fantastic stuff from Wesley Stefano to win the race by half a second. Fantastic stuff, Alex. Did anyone see that coming?
Well, he becomes the first qualified driver to enter the round of 16, beating out the only Super League driver we've had knocked out before the round of 16 so far. There's still one more between Tom Stevens and one of the other qualified drivers, Matt Gale. That comes up later on. I think that is in 2 rounds from now. We still have Matusz Majka and James Knox to come after this, although we might be doing Maggio versus Joffert. It's if that's sorted out, I'm unsure.
Yeah, well, like I said before, it seems that Maggio may have been given a bye for this round, which is why it says bye on the schedule. That would, of course, mean that Silver Joffert is not intending to make it to this round, and it would go the way of Alessandro Maggio, whether or not Joffert competes, or sorry, whether or not he would have beaten Joffert any other way. That means that if that was the case, now where's Maggio on my entry list? Yes, there he is. So if that was the case, which it does appear to be, then Maggio would be up against Casper Kurit tomorrow in the round of 16. But we will wait for absolute confirmation of that, and of course, so long as the event is still ongoing today, that there is still an opportunity for that to change. But it looks as if our next race is going to be Mateusz sorry, let me try that one more time. Mateusz Majka versus James Knox. So Mateusz Majka, I will get his results up very quickly, but I believe he was the champion of FS2. He was
Lots
indeed.
of podiums.
Sorry?
Lots of podiums. It's
Yes.
if you look at the sheet, it's mostly gold. Silver.
God,
and,
what is this streak? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He had 11. He had 11 podiums in a row from the first race in Germany to the first race in America. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's it was a long streak, and it was well talked about within the FS2 community. It was quite, I don't want to say shocking, but it was definitely one of the more impressive performances of the season when you consider that he did miss out in Canada. Same as Patrick Magnusson, to be fair. It was a tight battle.
Well, no wonder he won the championship. He also made an outing in Super Lights, finished 13th in the race at Brazil, so that's a points finish at least, and competed in a few, as I click on the wrong thing yet again. No, OBS, I did not mean to load you up. But he also competed in a few rounds of the Formula Sprint 1 Championship this year, with a best result of 3rd, once again, at the Brazilian round. As for James Knox, I will get up his result very quickly as well. I think he may have been one of the drivers who competed in a few different championships. Go away, OBS, what are you doing? Yes, so James Knox competed in a few rounds of FS1 this year, best result of 6th place. Competed in the majority of the year on FS2, best result of 3rd place in the 2nd race at China. And that appears to be it as far as his results are for this year. So in terms of results, definitely the favourite for this one would be Mateusz Majka. But of course, we've seen some upsets so far, and it could very easily go either way, because that's just how the Race of Champions work. It's an unfamiliar car and an unfamiliar course, and it really does equalise the field.
Yep, well, we've got our FS2 matchup, so this is familiar territory for me. I don't actually think we've seen any racing between Majka and Knox, at least broadcasted, so I can't really comment, but like you said, Majka, with the championship victory in FS2, does look as if he is the favourite for this heat in particular, and yeah, like you said, upsets can happen. James Knox can be a very good driver on occasion, and hopefully for him, that is the occasion this time around.
Indeed, although I'm absolutely sure that Mateusz Majka is going to put him through the school of hard knocks to get to the result that he is going for. That was a very long-winded way of making a very subpar pun. So we have James Knox on the right-hand side, driver's right. We have Mateusz Majka. I keep going to say Maciej. It reminds me of Maciej Młynek, who was racing in FS2 when I started commentating there way back in 2017. Massive drift there from James Knox. Did you see that? All the way around the hairpin. But very well controlled indeed. He is driving this with the throttle, just like we saw from Shimon earlier on. And he's still doing it out of the final turn. This is one of the most unique driving styles that we've seen so far today. But does it work? We have to wait for the sector times to come in to see the answer to that question. I think he was a little wide through the tunnel this time around. But once again, is he using the handbrake or something? This is incredible. I tell you what, they said that one of the other drivers was driving this like a rally car, but James Knox is rally crossing here. Across the line they go. Mateusz Micah, goodness me, I do apologise, has the advantage by half a second over James Knox. The rally crossing not entirely working just yet, but then again, Mateusz Micah is a very competitive racer. And yeah, he's doing it too, isn't he? Not quite to the same extent, but definitely over-rotating the car. And maybe that's just how it goes all of a sudden.
Maybe this is the decided driving technique now that everyone's going to listen to. It's the new most effective tactic for getting around these corners. I mean, to be fair, they are quite tight, and I think getting that rear end to kick out as Micah drifting into the tunnel is definitely a solid technique, drifting through that final corner, and that gap is massive now to James Knox. And the first round goes to Mateusz Micah.
I think Knox must have made a mistake on that last lap, because it's 1.8 seconds the gap, and that means that Mateusz Micah is 1-0 up. Mateusz Micah, why do I do that? I tell you what, this reminds me of an FS1 race that I commentated many years ago, where there was a man called Oliver Ellis Richardson. My mind could not make up, or my mind could not get over the fact that his name wasn't Oliver Ollis. It was Oliver Ellis. Come on, why am I doing this? But anyway, Mateusz. Oliver Ollis, that was his name, apparently. Mateusz Micah, there we go. Mateusz, Polish, there we go, is up against James Knox, and he is 1-0 up as we head into the second of 3 battles. And yeah, Alex, as I said, I think there must have been a mistake on that last lap from James. Does he have anything more? Can he bring it back for this second heat?
Still definitely possible for Micah as well to make a mistake, so Knox can certainly bring it back. But he's got his work cut out for him. He has got 2 races in a row to win, whereas Micah just has to win 1, and he'll be straight through to the round of 16. And I think that is exactly what will happen, although James Knox could go against all odds and pull it back. I hope so. I hope that we have a tie break, and it'll be very interesting to get proven wrong if that is the case.
Yeah, I believe after this we will have just 4 more matchups unless something happens with Maggio and Joffert. But this one is about to get underway. And the red lights are out, and that looked to be a slightly better start from Knox. Micah hesitated ever so slightly when the lights went out. That shouldn't matter if the times from race 1 are anything to go by, because Micah had such an advantage by the end that I don't think those 2 or so tenths of a second will end up mattering. But he brushed the wall there on the inside, didn't he? That was very tight stuff from Micah, as once again he swings out the tail, not quite as dramatically as James Knox was doing, but just a little bit. And then through the tunnel and towards the end of the first half lap. I say the tunnel, there appear to be 2 tunnels, although that's more of a bridge that he's just gone under. And very much hopped over the curbs there. Not quite as much as Taras did earlier, but a little bit of a hop from Mateusz Micah. He might actually be in trouble here, because we've seen a wall tap and a curb hop from Mateusz. And across the line he goes. Well, he still leads, and the gap is half a second. And here's James Knox. Now enjoy this, because we're about to see another lap of Tokyo Drift action. James Knox in the psychedelic liveried Mazda MX-5, which seems rather fitting actually for his driving style. Into the right-hander, kicks the tail out yet again. You can see the tyre smoke coming off those rear wheels. This is fantastic stuff to watch. And it's almost a shame that he's probably going to be knocked out here, because if we saw him in the round of 16, I'd love to see how he'd drive some of these other cars that we have still to come. Around the left-hander now. That was a beautiful line he just took. I don't know if it was quick, but it was pretty anyway. Into the tunnel he goes, and when he exits the tunnel, we will have our answer. Did Mateusz get that final lap hooked up? I think he tagged the wall there, did James Knox? Whoa, and sliding across the line, Mateusz Majka will go through to the round of 16. Apologies if you can hear my dog in the background, but another 2-0 victory this time goes the way of Mateusz Majka, Alex.
Yeah, that was just a constant battle of attrition. I think more to the walls and their cars than each other. I mean, that's the first set of sort of aggressive driving styles we've seen so far. I mean, like Knox, the first set of drivers that we've seen properly, I can't really call it pushing, I could say bullying their cars. To sort of get that rotation, get that speed. But it seems to have worked for Micah. And I think Knox just not able to sort of capitalize on it just as much as Micah there was. But Micah does move through to the round of 16. And I think we've got a bit of a delay on the matchup between Oggenhaug and Magaugi. But that's in about 10 minutes time as far as I'm concerned. We still have Tom Stevens versus Matt Gale to come up next. And we do have to say Tom Stevens, second seeded driver. And he did come second in the Super League Championship. So
Yes.
once again, just like Jan Granquist, it's going to be a very, very difficult task for Matt Gale coming in as a challenger, not a challenger, one of the qualified drivers. So, yeah, this should be pretty interesting, especially if Gale is able to get a victory up on Tom Stevens.
Yeah, so with that victory, Mateusz Majka will face Wesley Stefano tomorrow. That will be in the round of 16. But as you say, the next race is scheduled to be Tom Stevens versus Matt Gale. I noticed someone in the YouTube chat earlier asking whether it was Ewan Gale who was competing, but it is in fact Matt Gale. I don't know if there is any relation between the two of them, but I would also have made the same assumption if I didn't have the entry list up in front. Introducing our second seeded driver, Tom Stevens. He took 3 victories this year in Super League. He won in Spain, in Belgium, and in the USA, and was one of the best all-round drivers of the year. He missed the round in Imola, unfortunately, but even so, Grangfist had so many points at the end of the season that wouldn't have ended up mattering. But Tom Stevens, if he competes again next year, is one of my favourites for the Super League Championship. Definitely keep your eyes out for him and see how he ends up doing. As for Matt Gale, I do have to admit, he is a driver I have never seen before. So I have absolutely no idea how good he is. He did have to qualify for this race. He was the 5th fastest qualifier out of the 11 who attended. So wasn't initially confirmed an entry, but due to drivers dropping out, he was able to qualify. And he is the 31st seeded driver. So in terms of seeds, Tom Stevens should absolutely be the favourite for this one. And this should be a little bit of a walkover in all honesty. But like I said before, Matt Gale is a little bit of a wild card. I've never heard of him. I've never seen him racing. I don't know what he's done. Has he ever done Academy Series? I can't tell you. The website's down. So I guess we have to wait and see just how good he actually is. Alex, are you any more familiar with Matt's driving than I am?
Not at all. Hint, hint, Stefan. We would like to see the website so we could, give us a little bit of information and a little bit of knowledge about who these drivers are. But I think Matt Gale, for both of us, is a bit of an unknown driver. No disrespect at all. Oh.
Okay, so I presume that Matt Gale is, and he's about to... Oh, this would make sense. Sorry, let me introduce the racers first. So it's Gale on the left in the psychedelic coloured car, and Tom Stevens on the right in the blue car. I'll just update you quickly. Gale Force 97, I mentioned in the YouTube chat earlier on, is Matt Gale. Now that would make a lot of sense because, Gale Force. He says that this should be fun. The last time I raced here was in the last season on R Factor 1 in the Open Series, before tech issues ended that, so I've been a viewer ever since. So this is a welcome back to Matt Gale, and so much so of a welcome back that he last raced in GPVWC before I even started commentating here over 7 years ago. So Matt Gale has obviously become so much of a veteran here that I've never even heard of him. And I would like to apologize to him for that. But yes, welcome back, Matt. And finally, welcome to the world of R Factor 2. It's taken you long enough, but there you go. And he has the extremely tough task of going up against Tom Stevens in this Race of Champions. I wonder if he ever did the Race of Champions before, because I believe we did do a Race of Champions back in those days. I have actually seen a broadcast of, was it the 2013 Race of Champions that GPVWC did? Maybe Matt was in that. But anyway, Tom Stevens has the advantage at the end of the first lap. The gap is 2.5 seconds, so unfortunately not a great lap from Matt Gale there. And Tom Stevens is absolutely blitzing it. He was in the 57s on that first lap, 57.2. That's about as quick as we've seen in the first time around. And Alex, I think Tom should probably have this one under his belt now. Look how close he is to Matt going on to this final half a lap, and this side of the track is even quicker.
Yeah, for reference, usually when you're coming up from this side of the circuit on the left side, your opponent's usually in that banked corner. So that should give you a bit of an impression of just how much of an advantage Tom Stevens has here, heading into the final corner, and does take the win. And Matt Gale, honestly, nowhere to be seen in that final shot. And Tom Stevens takes the first round, and 1-0. Only has to win one more now to get to the round of 16.
Well, it's good to meet you, Matt, but unfortunately I don't think it's going to last very long. You were very unlucky to be drawn next to Tom Stevens, but that's just how the seeding works. And the gap in the end was 4.3 seconds, so Tom Stevens has a massive advantage over Matt Gale. Of course, it's only a 1-0 advantage if you look at the schedule, the results. But in terms of lap times, Tom Stevens is absolutely blitzing this. So they'll have to do it all over again. This time Stevens will go off from the left and Gale will go off from the right. And Tom will need to win this race in order to prevent it from going to a tiebreaker. But I think that he will end up doing so relatively comfortably, providing he doesn't make any major mistakes over the next couple of minutes. Alex, how does it feel to know that the last time Matt raced in this, you were probably still in primary school?
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
Yeah, I think I had to get one of those jokes in at some point. I know it's been a bit of a back and forth between you and Toby all year, where Toby's like, last time this happened, you were 2 or whatever, and then he feels old. But yes, I think that was very much the case with Matt Gale here, who last raced back in the R Factor 1 days. I think the first year in R Factor 2 was 2017, if I remember correctly. Might have been 2016, but I know they were already on R Factor 2 by the time I arrived, and that was 2017. So would have been around about that time, and yeah, I probably not much before. So the red light's coming on, and once again they will go off. And it's go, go, go. Tom Stevens spins up those rear wheels and gets a better start to the race than Gale. Overshoots the corner a little bit. You can see the tyre marks going through the dirt on the inside of the corner. I don't think it's going to matter too much because Stevens is so good around the rest of this track. I mean, as the second seeded driver, you would expect him to be, but Tom Stevens is up there for a reason. Absolutely brilliant Super League driver. And of course, he wasn't just the run-up this year, he was the runner-up last year as well, behind the fantastic Jake Dennehan, who was also the runner-up in the Race of who also won the Race of Champions last year. So we ended up with our ultimate champion, Jake Dennehan, but Tom Stevens, if I remember correctly, was right up there as well. Through the tunnel we go towards the first timing line. And what's the gap this time around between Stevens and Gale? It's big. Sorry, it's big, I'm afraid to say, between Stevens and Gale. And it's 3.3 seconds, so it's even more than it was in race 1. Tom Stevens with a major advantage over Matt Gale. And now we're taking a look at our returning driver, And when the website's back up, I will have to look up Matt Gale's results because I always like learning more about GPWC history. It's a shame that I can't talk about that right now because, as I've said before, I've literally never seen him race before. But across the line he goes to start his last half a lap, probably of the tournament, I'm afraid to say. But as I said earlier, it's agonizing not being able to see what the other driver is up to, what they're doing. Tom Stevens should be okay. Out of the final corner he comes, right up to the wall, but keeps it out of the barriers. And across the line he goes, beautiful line. And Matt Gale comes through to complete his tournament. And the gap was probably about 6 seconds, 5.6. So Tom Stevens absolutely dominates this round and will go through to the round of 16 tomorrow. I'm going to see if it's confirmed who he's up against. Tom Stevens will be up against Craig Patterson in tomorrow's competition, and that will be a very exciting one indeed. But Tom still will be the favourite going into that one as our second seeded driver. Thank you for turning up, Matt, and it's great to finally commentate on you racing. And I'm very sorry that I've never heard of you before, but I'm sure I'll see you around. I'd love to see even more drivers in the new season, the new year of GPWC competition. But unfortunately, that's as far as Matt's competition goes for today.
Yeah. To be fair,
Good lord, that's confusing. Okay, sorry. I don't know if you guys could hear what Remco was just saying, but Remco has just updated us that a few different people have pulled out. Lucas Stylin has pulled out at the last minute, as has... Stylin's it, okay.
Hockenhaug and Kanda have withdrawn.
Hockenhaug, Kanda, but you said someone else, right?
No, they're doing a show match.
Okay. Sorry, yes. So you're doing... Okay, right. Okay, let me update you on what I've just heard. So the next race will be Lucas Stylin versus Dominic Koroshavin. The two drivers who have pulled out are Magnus Hockenhaug and... which one? Is it Falcon or Kanda? Kanda, okay. So Magnus Hockenhaug is out. Is out. Shimon Kanda is out. That means that after Stylin versus Koroshavin, we're going to end the night with a race between Owen McGorgy and Michael Falkenhayn. But in the interest of fairness, because of how seeding works, that will only be a demonstration run. Both drivers will be confirmed through to tomorrow's action. Have I got that right? Okay, I've been told I've got that right. So, the next race will be Stylin versus Koroshavin, then it will be McGorgy versus Falkenhayn, but that race won't count. So, let me introduce you to Lucas Stylin and Dominic Koroshavin. I'm very sorry for the confusion that I've just introduced you guys to. But yes, Lucas Stylin, what did he compete in this year? I believe he was in FS1? Yes, he was. Won a couple of races, won 3 races in FS1 this year. And ultimately was 7th in that championship. Also did a race in Super Light, came 8th in that race. That was in Belgium. Did he do any Super League? Yes, he did. He raced in the last round at Brazil and unfortunately failed to finish in that particular race. As for Dominic Koroshavin, he also competed at that race in Brazil, and I know that because he was the first Ukrainian Super League driver since something like 2009. Fantastic stuff to see Dominic on the Super League grid. And I thought he did a good job, but unfortunately failed to finish that race. He mainly raced in Super Lights this year, with a best result of 4th place at both Brazil and the round in Imola, which I don't know whether it's called San Marino or Emilia-Romagna. But anyway, it will be Lucas Stylin on the left in the blue car, Dominic Koroshavin on the right in the silvery grey car. And these two will go at it as our last official competition of the day, because of course our last race will not end up counting for anything whatsoever. And Koroshavin is seeded number 22 with Stylin number 11. So Stylin should be the favourite. Away they go. Stylin gets an ever so slightly better start, goes under the bridge, around the hairpin, misses the sausage curbs, which Oliver Terrace so neatly bunny hopped over earlier on. And we will wait to see who goes through to compete in tomorrow's action. Whoever goes through out of these two will end up competing against Sandeep Singh tomorrow, which will of course be a very tough ask considering how he did up against Damier Katco earlier on. There's Lucas Stylin through the banked corners at the top of the hill, past the rock wall, wide in, tight out, right up against the barriers, and kicks the tail out slightly. Not the cleanest line through, but I think he's okay. Keeps it out of the wall in the tunnel. Don't think I've seen anyone hit that particular wall yet, which is impressive to see considering how close it is, and it's a close race too. And at the end of the first lap, the gap is 0.3 of a second in favour of Lucas Stylin. So Stylin leads. I think Kurit slightly touched the wall on the entrance to the corner there, not even the apex. So you can tell how much of the course Kurit using, all of it and more. You know, sometimes in Formula 1 you see those AWS graphics, which is like distance to the wall 0.01 centimeters or something. I think that was minus 0.01 centimeters that time around from Dominic. And through the sweepers he goes, the little S-bends after the bridge. The left-hander, just one more corner to go now. Is it Stylin or Kurit? Stylin has a slight advantage out of the final corner, and it's Lucas Stylin. Oh, and into the wall goes Kurit, just pushing a little too hard on that last lap. So Stylin gets it to 1-0, and just needs to win one more battle in order to go through to the round of 16 tomorrow and face Sandeep Singh. It was a relatively close race though until that final corner, and in fact I tell you what, even despite the contact, there was still only 0.8 of a second in it. So, can Dominic Kurit hook it up this time around? If he makes no mistakes, he still stands a chance of going ahead of Lucas Stylin. Do you agree with me on that, Alex?
I still think this is going to be one of the more, hopefully, one of the closer races. We have got two of the similar seeded drivers, I want to say. Oh, not really. I was looking forward to Ockenhaug versus Owen McGaugy. Those were seated exactly next to each other. So that was sort of what I was hoping for. But either way, we do now have the second race, and I hope Kurit is able to pull it back against Lucas Stylin. I do think Kurit has a good chance here. They're both very experienced drivers, both very strong drivers, and I think if Kurit can correct the mistake he made on that last run, he can easily keep matched here with the Swedish driver on his right.
So Kurit on the left, Stylin on the right, and once again the red lights go out. This could end up being our first actual competition of the day, although stick around for a little showdown between two of the drivers, between McGorgy and Falkenhayn, and I tell you what, that one should be pretty close as well. I'll tell you why after this one. Kurit drifting it through, although that wasn't quite as clean a drift as we've seen from some other drivers. You saw it kind of end a bit early. The car snapped slightly in the middle of the corner. I don't think he's got it quite as hooked up this time. This doesn't look as good as it did in the first race, but we won't know until we see the sector times. Once again, I do apologise if you can hear my dog in the background. I think Mum's just left, and he gets a little bit upset when that happens, but I hope he's not coming through on my microphone too badly. Dominic Kurit into the tunnel, and I'm expecting to see Stylin leading this lap, maybe not by a massive margin. Oh, I tell you what, maybe Stylin made a mistake. He certainly wasn't as good as I expected him to be, and the gap was 0.6 of a second in the advantage of Kurit. Can Kurit keep this race alive? Can he make it 1-1 with Lucas Stylin? We're heading through the middle part of the course. To the tunnel we go, on board with Stylin. And he is the driver with it all to do. He's in the opposite situation to the place he was in the first race. Half a lap to go now. Which way will it go? Into the S's. Go on, Alex.
Yeah, I think Stylin is actually quite far back, quite distant to Karashavin here. Not even could see Karashavin in that sort of section ahead of Stylin when Stylin was crossing the line. It is very much a far gap. Karashavin crosses the line, and it will be 1-1, and we will have a third round. That'll be...
And 6/10 in it. So Karashavin beats Lucas Stylin despite, as far as we saw, no wall touches from either driver. And that is a very different result to the one we got in the first race. So it is 1-1. We do go to a decider round, and I'm very glad we're seeing this late on in the competition. So, Dominic Karashavin versus Lucas Stylin. Each of them have proven themselves worthy of fighting out here in front of us. But which one will go through and face Sandeep Singh in tomorrow's competition? We wait to see the red lights once again and to see who will come out on top. I don't know about you, Alex, but I very much enjoyed today's competition. It's a very unique thing, the GPWC Race of Champions, because normally we focus on the championships as a whole. We know where drivers stand. Sometimes there is team tactics involved. Sometimes there's a development race involved. But this is just pure head-to-head stuff. Sometimes between drivers who have never raced together before. Drivers between whom you'd never see because they're in different categories or whatever. And I think that it really helps us to shine a spotlight on people who may end up being slightly overlooked in the career ladder, and also see just how good the drivers who win actually are. I think the cream rises to the top for a reason, and we're about to see which of these two is worthy of a place in the round of 16. Away we go. Stylin in the blue car, Karashavin in the silvery grey car. They cross the start line pretty much exactly together. Don't know quite which way it went, but there was definitely less than half a tenth of a second in it. And Karashavin is the first one we're going to ride on board with. Look at him wrestling with that steering wheel. His style has been quite different to some of the other drivers. What I'm looking to see is whether these drifts take him around the corner neatly, or whether he has to correct himself partway through the turns like he did that last time around. That has actually looked like a pretty neat first half a lap there from Dominic Karashavin. I think he's getting into it now. I think he's getting into that rhythm. Through the hairpins he goes. He almost looks like he's driving on shopping trolley wheels. Look at this. Tyre smoke flying. And now we come up to the first sector time. That's a little bit wide. And Stylin leads the first lap. So Stylin gets across the line 0.2 of a second ahead. Just 0.2 is the gap, but we've seen that overcome in the past. We're now on board with Stylin. If he doesn't make a mistake this time around, then he should be going through to the round of 16 tomorrow. Took a lot of curb though, a lot of curb. And he is also a little wide through that final corner of, and he's hit the wall. He touches the wall. This is going to be close. There's half a lap to go now. This is completely uncallable now. Lucas Stylin in the light blue car, possibly just pushing a little too much. Goodness me, my heart is racing like it hasn't been for many of these other races at all. Through the tunnel he goes. And there's going to be one more corner. He gets it very wide. Who wins it? And it's Slavla Ukraina. Fantastic. From Dominic Karashavin, who beats Lucas Stylin in a 2-1 contest. Fantastic stuff. And what a race we've just seen. The gap was just 2.8 of a second. Great stuff there. And Dominic Karashavin will face Sandeep Singh in tomorrow's action, Alex.
Yeah, I think Karashavin just had the cool ahead. Although it has to be said, Karashavin's driving style was incredibly strange. I mean, it looks smooth from the outside, but when you're watching it out off board, it just doesn't... It's so sharp and so just argumentative with what the car wants to do. I mean, it seems like he's constantly fighting that to try and get it around the corner, but it seems to have worked. Stylin just wasn't able to keep calm under pressure and hitting that inside wall a couple of times on his final run, and just not really helping himself to try and get into that split with Sandeep Singh. But we still do have the battle between Mogi and Falcon coming up next. It doesn't mean anything. Mogi and Falcon are through, which means Mogi tomorrow will be battling with Jan Granqvist, and Falcon will be fighting Mark Schluter for a place in the quarterfinals, which means all of our splits are complete, which means, like I said, Jan Granqvist versus Owen Mogi, Alessandro Maggio versus Casper Kurit, Wesley Stefano versus Matush Micah, Alex Lahu versus Oliver Taras, Tom Stevens versus Craig Patterson, Jan Grangoon against Simon Frelich, Mark Schluter against Mikhail Falkenhayn, Sandeep Singh versus Dominic Karashavin, which we had just seen the ending of. And I mean, it's quite interesting. We've got, of course, Tom Stevens versus Craig Patterson and Mark Schluter versus Michael Falkenhayn. German drivers and English drivers will be showing off tomorrow.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, don't go anywhere. We do still have one more race to go. This is between Owen Mogi and Michael Falkenhayn. Just to remind you as to why this can't count for position, why this doesn't count in terms of drivers going through to tomorrow. It is partly because that would leave us with one driver too few, so we wouldn't have enough drivers for tomorrow if that was to take place. And it's also because of the way that seeding works, where coming into this competition, the top seeded driver was drawn against the bottom seeded driver, the second top seeded driver was drawn against the second bottom seeded driver, etc., etc., just so that the more competitive drivers weren't put up against each other from the very beginning. It's just the standard way that tournaments work in the interest of fairness. And that means, of course, that Falkenhayn and Mogi would not naturally have been drawn against each other at this stage of the competition. Just to introduce you to these drivers, Owen Mogi, while he is only the 17th seeded driver, is significantly better than that would suggest. The only reason that he was not one of the top 4 drivers from GPVWC Super League this year is because he did not compete in the whole season. He missed a massive chunk of the middle part of the year, missed 7 Grand Prix in a row. But the Grand Prix he did compete in, he did very well in indeed. He won 2 races. He won the Australian Grand Prix and the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And I really think that if he'd stuck around, he would have been a contender for maybe not necessarily the championship, because he didn't quite have the consistency, but he would probably have been in the top 3 or 4. And so you've got to keep an eye out for Owen Mogi here. As for Michael Falkenhayn, he is not a Super League driver, but he has raced in some of our other championships. He raced in FS2 this season. He did a few races towards the end of the year. Best result of 13th at the last race in Brazil. But I do think that he's shown a bit more pace than that would suggest. He was right up at the front of the grid in Azerbaijan before having a terrible couple of races. And actually gave me a little bit of a punt off camera, but don't tell anyone, because he ended up getting away with that. But that's okay. No hard feelings, Michael. I will put down the knife. Nothing's happening. Anyway, Michael Falkenhayn will be on the right in the blue cart. Owen Mogi will be on the left in the silvery grey cart. And these two are going to go at it for a little bit of a practice for tomorrow. This race will not end up mattering because both of these drivers we will see again, but we will see how they line up against each other today, which may give us a little bit of a glimpse into what to expect for tomorrow. I honestly think that either of these drivers could be contenders. And actually I should point out quickly that Michael Falkenhayn was the top driver in the qualifying session for this round. And so we know that he's quick in this style of racing, Alex.
Yeah, Falkenhayn, very good in sort of one-lap situations. Well, it's 2-lap, but on one-lap pace, Falkenhayn is incredibly strong, especially in qualifying sessions like FS2. He was quite up there, but just wasn't able to keep it and maintain it in the races. So I think for Falkenhayn, this is really playing for his strengths here in a shootout situation against Owen McGargy, but I didn't actually see the gap properly between them as we crossed the line sort of at the midpoint of the lap. And it does seem McGargy's got a bit of a gap, about 2 seconds between himself and the German driver. And I think McGargy is looking to be the favourite here as he navigates the right side of the circuit for the second time this race. And I think that's quite clean for McGargy. And it seems he has the smoothest of driving styles, very close to the wall. And I thought he was going straight into it, but he's proved me wrong. And I just love how quick they've gone through there and into the second cambered section. McGargy just keeping it nice and clean, nice and close to that inside wall. Just how close he is, I can't say, but it looks to be fine margins for McGargy here, putting on an impressive show. And into the final corner for McGargy, it is a massive margin to Michael Falkenhayn.
Yeah, that'll be about a second.
7.113.
It's 1.2 seconds. So McGargy wins the race by 1.2 seconds over Michael Falkenhayn, and they will go into the second race with it 1-0 to Owen McGargy. Once again, this does not matter because both drivers are already confirmed through to tomorrow's action. Ed Hunter as well says Falkenhayn was also really good in Academy at Mexico. Yes, I have to admit, I did see that race actually. I was watching Academy in Mexico, but I cannot remember at all how well Michael Falkenhayn did in that competition. But anyway, I'm sure when we get the website back, we'll be able to have a look at the Academy results from this year, but that will not be during today's broadcast. Hopefully they get it back up for tomorrow, but no rush. It's absolutely fine. Onto the grid we go once again. This time Falkenhayn will be on the left and McGargy will be on the right. And if McGargy is able to win this, then he should go into tomorrow with his confidence at its absolute peak, knowing that he's beaten someone who is already confirmed to be going through. I should also point out that both of these drivers who are competing today were likely to go through anyway. Michael Falkenhayn would have been the higher seed in his competition. He would have been against Shimon, both of whom had to qualify for this race, but Falkenhayn was faster in qualifying. As for Ockenhaug versus McGargy, they were technically the two drivers closest together on seeding that were going to compete today. Ockenhaug would have been seeded 16th, McGargy would have been seeded 17th. However, I would actually have said that McGargy would be the favourite out of that matchup. Just because of the circumstances of McGargy not seeding in the top 16, I actually think that McGargy is probably one of the 4 or 5 best drivers in attendance here today, and so his seed really doesn't match his actual ability. So definitely look out for Owen McGargy over the course of this competition. Depending on how this goes, he might even be a contender for the overall victory, which would be quite something. And if you were wondering, our lowest seeded driver who is confirmed through to the action tomorrow is Casper Kurit, 24th seed out of 32 drivers who will go up against Alessandro Maggio tomorrow. So there's the first sector time, and the gap is 1.8 seconds. That's a huge lead that Owen McGargy has over Michael Falkenhayn. He should be able to win this, providing he doesn't make any major mistakes on this last lap. And I don't quite think that Falkenhayn has what it takes. But it's also worth noting that we will be competing in different cars tomorrow. So if Falkenhayn is struggling because of the Mazda MX-5, then he'll have another chance tomorrow in a brand new car, and maybe he'll be more competitive in those, Alex.
Yeah, just to correct you, it's not Casper Kurit, who are 24th seed. It's Wesley Stefano, a 29th seed.
Yes.
The only of the qualified drivers to make it through. Oh, McGargy's made a couple of mistakes in this final section of the lap, and I think that might put Falkenhayn back in contention, although it doesn't seem to be the case. McGargy, a second, I want to say, before I even see the gap. Yeah, a second.
Good guess, actually. 1.2, so you were only 0.2 off. Not even that. But yeah, Owen McGorgy takes a decisive, very convincing win and goes into tomorrow with his head held high. But it is not goodbye to Michael Falkenhayn, because he will also compete tomorrow and he will go up against Mark Schluter. Now that's going to be a tough ask. But anyway, you're absolutely right saying that Wesley Stefano is our lowest seeded driver who will compete tomorrow. We still have our top 3 seeds as well, Grankvist, Stevens and Schluter. And so tomorrow is looking very bright indeed. We have quite a competition on our hands. Just to remind you once again of all the lineups that we will see tomorrow, Jan Grankvist will face Owen McGorgy, and that's the lineup I'm looking forward to the most because those are 2 Super League winners. So definitely look out for that one, and we are really going to see one of the favourites go home in that particular matchup. Alessandro Maggio will face Casper Kurit. Wesley Stefano will face Mateusz Majka. Stefano, of course, the lowest seeded driver going into this, who knocked out our 4th seeded driver, Carlos Martin. Alex Laho is going to be up against Oliver Taras, bunny hopping Oliver. Tom Stevens will be going up against Craig Patterson. Jan Dragoon will go up against Shimon Frelick, and both of those are in the top 10 seeds, so that will be quite a competitive one as well. Mark Schluter will go up against Michael Falkenhayn. Sandeep Singh will go up against Dominic Kurashavin. And then, of course, we will be moving on to the quarterfinals, semi-finals, the round of 3, or the 3rd place matchup, which will confirm the winner of the bronze medal. And then, of course, the gold medal will be determined by our grand finale, which, as far as I'm aware, will be a best of 5. So we'll have plenty more action to look forward to in tomorrow's competition. Now, I think that is it from the broadcast today. I don't think we're sticking around for interviews because I don't know quite who we'd speak to. But anyway, thank you very much to Remco de Zeeuw for broadcasting the sights and sounds that you've seen today. Thank you very much to Menno Klont for helping to organise this event and helping to get me set up before this race. Thank you to everyone who's competed and chatted in the YouTube chat. And finally, last but very much not least, Alex, thank you to you as well. I am very sorry that the first time we've ever spoken to each other was midway through a broadcast. But I've enjoyed talking with you, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow as well. How have you found it today?
Well, it was exciting racing, that's for sure. And I'm definitely waiting for tomorrow, where the stakes are higher and will definitely be a lot more intense racing awaiting us. So, yes, I'm quite excited for that.
Absolutely. Do you have any sneaking suspicions of who's going to win it outright?
I mean, of course, Jan Grankvist comes into it the favourite, highest seeded, and I think he could be easily a contender for the final, although we've got a few very promising drivers through the lineup. I think anyone in this round of 16 could easily take it into the finals, and I think it could be even go down to Alex Laho and Jan Grankvist, or even we could see a shock and see Mateusz Majka or Wesley Stefano coming out on top. Who knows? It's quite exciting because I have no idea how to call this.
And don't underestimate Owen McGorgy, because he has beaten Jan Grankvist before in wheel-to-wheel contact. There is no guarantee that our top-seeded driver will make it through the round of 16 tomorrow. But the only way to find out is going to be to tune in. So make sure you don't miss it. We will be live at 7 p.m. tomorrow. And it will once again be myself and Alex Foulkes. And as far as I'm aware, Remco de Zeeuw on cameras, just as it was today. Thank you all very much for watching, and we will see you at the same time tomorrow. Good night.